with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, January 7th, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Republican supporters of Donald Trump storm the Capitol building, leaving 4 dead. And on the program, we'll have historian Rick Perlstein on the conservative movement that brought us yesterday. And looking forward, we'll be talking to Lizette Ocampo, political director of the People for American Way, on what happened in Georgia and what it means for future Democratic wins. Meanwhile, well over 100 Republican lawmakers vote to perpetuate the lie that inspired the Capitol insurrection. And at nearly 4 a.m. last night, Joe Biden wins the presidency once again. Meanwhile, it is now official. Democrats will take the next Senate in a 3-branch of government sweep from November. Other news, COVID deaths nearly top 4,000 people. Congresswoman Cori Bush intros a bill to sanction House members who supported the election challenge. And Congresswoman Ilhan Omar introduces impeachment. Lastly, rats seeking redemption, jumping ship now in the 11th hour. All this and more on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Emma is here with me as usual. Emma, weird day today. Yesterday was also a weird and very scary day.
Absolutely. It's hard to put into words the kinds of feelings I have. I mean, yesterday was shocking. The more it sits with you, it's upsetting. Even as we try not to romanticize the images of the U.S. Capitol and the government in and of itself, so we can critique it effectively. Seeing these insurrectionists, these terrorists, many of them, posing in the Capitol building and putting their feet up on Pelosi's desk, the violence that ensued, it was disturbing, and then it became angering for me. So in terms of my mood today, I'm pretty peeved.
We should say there were 4 deaths associated at this point, as far as we know, with what took place yesterday. It's unclear what the other 3 are. We don't have.
It seems someone fell from a wall. Other medical issues like that. There was only one person who seems to have died from shooting involving security and Trump supporters.
There was a woman who was shot dead by Capitol Hill police. The video is out there. We're obviously not going to show it. It's very disturbing. The Capitol Police had barricaded some doors inside the building, protecting members. And I should tell you that I've had contact with a couple of people who were in that building at the time, and these folks are not wallflowers. I mean, they have been through similar events in the past. They specifically told me that this was the scariest they've experienced because the police were also terrified the Capitol Hill police. And the police, you can find these videos, like I say, online, had barricaded a set of 2 doors with all sorts of furniture and whatnot. And these insurrectionists were smashing windows. They began to smash the window of one of these doors. This woman began to climb through the door, and the police officer shot to stop her, and she fell back. At that time, it appeared that there were more SWAT-oriented police who came up on the other side of that door and tried to provide her with medical treatment. Frankly, I'm surprised that there wasn't more deaths based upon the video, and you can find video from ITVS had reporters. I think it's a British outfit, had reporters inside the building, and these people went there with it appears, the specific intention of doing what they did. You can find video. We'll be playing this over the course of the show. Video where they overran barricades. Video where police officers, Capitol Hill police officers, were literally trampled upon. They suffered many injuries, as far as I can tell.
I'm sure that the police were terrified. They were unprepared, and it seems completely by design that they didn't take these Trump supporters seriously. If they were Black Lives Matter protesters, as we've now seen the difference in the preparedness of the Capitol Police when Black Lives Matter protests were happening over the summer, they would be prepared to the nines. They would have all the riot gear they needed. They would have all of the preparedness possible. But because it's Trump supporters, kind of one of their own, there's a wink and a nod, no preparedness. And I'm sure they were terrified in the moment, but the reason that they were terrified was because they didn't take the white nationalism seriously that's coming out of these groups.
And so there's multiple videos out there that at least from one angle show that in some instances maybe they were allowed to they were allowed to come through the gates. All of this, the bottom line is it all needs to be investigated. The National Guard was not brought out until much later, and I've heard conflicting reports on why that might have been the case. There is some suggestion that there was the Defense Department was afraid of putting the National Guard under Donald Trump's authority, and that they didn't bring them out until they had the ability to talk to the leaders of both parties, including the vice president. The bottom line is it all needs to be investigated. And one of the themes that you're going to hear today, and I don't want people to mistake this. I don't think there's anybody listening to the sound of my voice right now or who's watching this who is not aware that Donald Trump has been promoting this type of thing for years, prior to him even becoming president. In the course of his campaign, this type of violence was being, in one form or another, encouraged by him.
At his rallies in 2015, encouraging people to punch people.
Indeed. And so, but I also want to say, and part of what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that the leadership of the House has decided to go forward with their scheduled vacation, which frankly, I don't think should have happened in the first place. But put that aside, I don't know what can convince you that you need to stay in session or at least return to session. I understand people are upset. You take the weekend, return to session on Monday and begin impeachment hearings. I don't know what more could happen where you would have the ability to hold impeachment hearings that would spar them. I mean, do you need the entire Capitol to be burned down before you decide this warrants impeachment? Let's start the day the way that Donald Trump and these people did yesterday at approximately, about noon yesterday. Donald Trump has assembled, and again, on social media it could be seen that there was going to be attempts to do what was done. There had been warnings about this. The presumption that I think we all had was that there was going to be, because all we have seen in Washington, D.C., with these type of protests, like Emma said, all we have seen has been an over-militarization. So one would have anticipated that they would have anticipated this. Here's Donald Trump explaining to his supporters. I don't know like what more you need. Explaining to his supporters that you have to show strength, not weakness, as they sit agitating, ready to go into the Capitol. Play this clip number 1.
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated.
I mean, if you look at the interviews with people who are inside that building, the ITVS report, you talk to people on the outside, they regurgitate exactly what he just said. We are here to take our country back from these Congress people who have stolen our election. We can't see the ballots. We can't see the voting machines. They won't show it to us. We're taking it back. That is to a person. If you find any video interviewing any of those people at any juncture, that is what they're saying.
It's a cult of personality because they are regurgitating everything he does. So when he and Rudy Giuliani go out there on the stump and they encourage violence, what do you know? You beget violence. You get people desecrating the nation's capital, which I get it. We've done a lot of atrocious things in the past. It doesn't exactly stand for roses and flowers and everything like that. But there are some things that are sacred, but not to Donald Trump's ego and not to the Republicans that enable it because they want to continue to loot the federal government on behalf of their donors and themselves. That's not sacred.
I want to play one more clip, which took place just moments after Donald Trump told his people that we are here to stop Congress from certifying the electors, and you have to be strong. You can't be weak to take your country back. And then they begin to smash windows, bust through doors, and sweep through Congress. We will play more clips as well in a moment. We're going to be talking to Rick Perlstein. Should just say that while the House is on vacation, has left for vacation, who knows if they will come back or not, Chuck Schumer has called for two things. One, either the cabinet, including the vice president, to invoke the 25th Amendment and get rid of Donald Trump, or two, in the absence of that, impeachment hearings to impeach Donald Trump before January 20th. We will talk more about that with Rick Perlstein and other things when we return. Quick break. Be right back. Want to welcome to the show We have him, historian Rick Perlstein. He is the author of 4 books that to understand the conservative movement in this country, I think I can't recommend enough. Before the Storm, Nixon Land, The Invisible Bridge, and Reagan Land. Rick Perlstein, welcome to the program.
Hi, am I, is this thing on?
You're on.
Good.
So Rick, let me just say this, like just to put this in context, today we were going to, we had planned to talk more about Georgia and about what the Senate could do at a 50-50 split and what reconciliation meant and this and that. And we're going to talk a little bit just to look backwards in terms of what happened in Georgia. But I wanted to bring you on because I think, I'm not, you have chronicled the past 60 years of more or so of conservative development in this country. And you also understand, I think, of the people I've interviewed over the past 15 years, as well as anybody, and have written extensively on the politics of the day as well. And so, I wanted to put this into context because there is, and we could start with this because we traded this in text, this notion where we hear people say, this is not the America I know. I mean, where have these people been?
It's one of these days for me where everything just kind of runs together. It's been an amazing privilege to be able to, have an audience to explain this stuff, so I've been doing a lot of media. I think it was for an economist podcast that I actually I went back 250 years, right? And started talking about the thesis. I think the simplest way to describe the writing I've been doing, both as a historian and a journalist, this whole history I've been explaining, is that a lot of this, most of this, is the entire United States becoming an embodiment of the politics of the authoritarian South, right? So we can go back 250 years and talk about the 3/5 compromise and, the Senate. We can go through the sectional crisis in which, basically the South became a colonial power because its agriculture was failing, and tried to kind of pile up electoral votes and senators by inventing new states that had slaves. We could go to Reconstruction. We can go to the Democratic Party having a 2/3 rule for its nominees to make sure that the South controlled the nominations. We could go through the 1950s and massive resistance and which was, of course, obviously an armed struggle against the federal government. We could go to things like the independent elector movements in which in 1956 and 1960, they tried the exact same thing of not having electors vote for a president who they thought would, harm the South. We could go through the cult of militarism in the South, guns and all that. Ultimately, what we're talking about is an idea that sort of a armed white minority should govern the country at the expense of not only the majority, but equal citizenship for all its members. And what we see is the apotheosis of this, that it's literally been brought to the door of the Capitol, not for the first time, right? Don't forget that when, Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts gave a speech explaining how the slave system works and how there's a reason that a lot of slaves are not completely dark in color. And that was seen as such an offense to the honor of the South that he was beaten within an inch of his death, of his life, in an organized conspiracy by members of Congress and the Senate. So I'm kind of like trying to pull all this together and say that this is, in fact, America. It's a struggle for America. And that to the extent to which our elites just say this was some kind of outlying thing, and can't we all just get along and let, clowns like, Josh Hawley and, Ted Cruz say, well, this is not what I meant. We just meant, let's have a nice legal procedure. Bob Dylan said you can rob someone with a fountain pen or you can rob someone with a gun, right? So the cats with the fountain pen need to be tied to the folks with the guns. And we need to understand, the fact that Nancy Pelosi sent the House of Representatives home without dealing with this civic catastrophe is just sickening, and she'll go down in the annals of history as fecklessness in the extreme. I'm very, very mad.
It's stunning. We were just saying, Emma and I, Emma Vigeland is with us as well.
Hi, Rick.
We were just saying that. What is the bar that you need to surpass to compel impeachment? If it is not this, where is that narrow corridor?
Or hearty speech.
Yeah, I should remind people, we had 121, I think it is, representatives in the House last night who voted to not certify these electors. We had 6 senators who voted last night to not certify these electors. Like you say, they were doing with a pen what their supporters were doing outside or attempted to do earlier in the afternoon.
Antifa, Sam. Haven't you heard?
What's that?
I heard that on Tucker Carlson last night.
They've used very sophisticated facial recognition software. The guy with the Viking hat is Antifa, despite the fact that he's a Q icon.
Yes.
Despite the fact that they all have white supremacist, not all of them, but there have been white supremacist tattoos identified on a lot of these guys. Yeah, they went really deep undercover.
I did hear Louis Gohmert on Sean Hannity's program yesterday talking that they saw a hammer and sickle tattooed to one of the protesters.
We're not going to change the hammer and sickle, guys, but can we talk about Nancy Pelosi?
Yes. I think I definitely want to get to this, and we should say that I had said just before we came on. Before we get to Nancy Pelosi, because I think it is important to just continue to mine, and I definitely do want to get to Nancy Pelosi, to mine this concept of this is not America and this is an anomaly, because we have seen that response along every single step of the way during the Trump administration. The idea, and we see this also from centrist, if you will, journalists, from even opinion journalists who are center left, this whole notion of now, and we saw it from Obama, we saw it from Biden, the fever's going to break. The implication is that there is some type of extraneous force.
Left me exactly to the door of where I wanted to go with Nancy Pelosi. Did you hear her remarks? She said, this is the feast of the Epiphany, and maybe now we can expect an epiphany. She's literally written into her.
Maybe now the fever will break.
We've been
hearing this forever.
There will be an epiphany. This is intended. This is believed to be, by a lot of people, a revolution. Whatever, 30%, 40% of Republicans say what happened was great. This is not an epiphany kind of thing. This is a war. Luckily, we get to fight it peacefully because that's what we do, and we have law and right on our side. There has to be sort of a understanding of the political order of battle, that we're fighting a fight that goes back to the 1770s and the 1780s, and we need leaders. We need, and I'm going to use some metaphors that I don't want misconstrued. I'm not talking about guns. I'm not talking about violence. The Democrats need a wartime consigliere. Remember in The Godfather?
Yep.
Tom, the Irish guy played by what's his name? I'm sorry.
Duvall.
We need a wartime consigliere. I really like what Biden said. He gave a good speech. I'm almost willing for him to say, yes, America, there's nothing America can't do when we're united. Well, that's nonsense. That's sickening. We can't, conquer counterinsurgencies in places like Vietnam and Iraq and that kind of rhetoric. This doesn't help. But we need to understand these guys aren't going away.
What is it? I mean, I don't mean to pick on Ezra Klein, but he wrote something saying that this could be one of those clarifying moments. And it's like we had people bringing guns. we had people bringing guns to
Pipe bombs.
town halls.
What was the operational? Yes, right.
About healthcare 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Like how do people not see this as a lineage? What is the compulsion for these people, for Nancy Pelosi, for Barack Obama, for Joe Biden, who said once Donald Trump is gone, this is all going to go away? That is the thinking, right? I mean, Dick Durbin says we're not going to impeach because he's going to be gone in 2 weeks. Let's play this clip of Dick Durbin, because this isn't a perfect example of this. And like, as if Donald Trump was dropped from the heavens by aliens and completely without context as to how he became president of the United States.
Well, Biden called him an anomaly. Biden said that he was.
Let me hear the Durbin clip.
Here's the Durbin. Here's Durbin.
It's
Durbin.
just a quote, not a clip.
Oh, it's just a quote. All right. Do we have it? Can we put it up or something? Here we go.
I can do the imitation because I can do a Chicago accent.
Do we have a clip, like a literally
the quote?
Brenda, do we have that?
I can find it.
1 second.
All right. Okay. Well, the point is, Dick Durbin has said that there is no point in impeaching him because the Republicans probably won't go along with it, and we've only got 2 weeks anyways. And this, I want to say allergy, but I don't feel like it's an intense enough word. This idea that we cannot hold the Republicans to account, as if there is no political price to be paid by them for not impeaching Donald Trump in this moment. It is stunning to me.
So I love Dick Durbin. He's my senator. He's a great liberal. His heart really is in the right place, right? But he's part of this world, right? And I actually had a chance to meet Dick Durbin in 2005, I think it was. I went to a Senate Democratic retreat. And if you'll recall, after Abu Ghraib, after the revelation that, we are systematically torturing and humiliating people, he said this is like something we would see in Nazi Germany. And it was right after that had happened. And I told him and his wife that I really appreciated him saying that. And later on in the thing, his wife hugged me. She was so grateful that someone gave a kind word for that, because I think he was so abused for kind of going beyond the bounds of quote unquote civility and, kind of breaking Godwin laws in the sacred precinct of the American elite. And I think he was just so beaten up by that. It's enforced. It's an ideologically enforced thing. And people who are in the elite, I think, they think that if they can somehow, kind of, the things will just fall apart. If we really, kind of like take this battle to the uttermost, that somehow there's something that can appease them, right? It's an appeasement idea. Reagan and the conservatives would always talk about, this is Munich. We can't appease, the blah, blah, blahs and the blah, blah, blahs and the blah, blah, blahs. But, we're the Neville Chamberlains. We're appeasing these guys. Like I say, it's not violent. It's just a matter of rhetoric. It's just a matter of, using the laws at our disposal, using the power that they have been granted by the sovereign of the United States, which is the people. This is the people's house. They've been elected to represent the will of the people and uphold the Constitution. Uphold the Constitution.
Rick,
yes.
I'm just curious about, this comes to mind. I mean, you brought up Reagan there, and I'm thinking about conservatives of past and all the talk about the silent majority. I mean, Trump retreads these kinds of things too.
Right.
The role of minority rule in these kinds of insurrections and
this part that goes back to the 18th century. I just did like a half an hour interview with Ron Brownstein on this.
Okay, well then you're warmed up for this.
I'm totally warmed up, right?
Right. So look, I mean, now that there's a 50-50 split in the Senate, something like 40 million more Americans are going to be represented by the Democratic side. Right. Biden won by 7 million votes in the popular vote. Hillary Clinton obviously won by 3 million. Like, what about that psychology of the fact that they actually are in the minority informs this kind of terroristic action?
Idea. That's basically where the Southern politics come from. This is 3/5 of a person. I mean, it's like they literally, kind of wrote minority rule into the Constitution. They get 2 senators and at least 3 electoral votes no matter how many people they have, right? Rural states, southern states, right? 1956, 1960, in both cases, there were organized attempts to have electors vote for the person who did not get the most votes in their state to keep a liberal from becoming president, right? They didn't have to do it in 1956 because Republicans won, whatever. But in 1960, like, the Kennedy people were actually afraid that, electors from places like South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia were going to deny Kennedy the presidency because there were enough people in the South who didn't think that the number of people who voted for president should be the determining factor of who should be president, that it was that important for white supremacy, to actually be the guiding philosophy of America. So and then of course, they're Democrats then, but then of course, by the time of Goldwater, who was nominated by people who literally said our role model are the Stalinists who took over meetings that they weren't, the guy, you remember before the storm, Sam, this guy,
yes.
F. Clifton White, the guy who wired the nomination for Goldwater, says, we're going to win because we're going to basically take over these meetings using parliamentary tricks and outlasting them. He was a minority candidate, even within the Republican Party, right? So, and then it becomes the voting suppression, which is all based on this bullshit myth from 1960 that was basically run. The 1968 voting suppression effort was run from a Republican senator's office. It was run from Everett Dirksen's office. He sent out thousands and thousands of caging letters from his office using his free franking privileges. This is the Republican
They still
Party.
named a building after him.
Yeah, right. So, they got enjoined by a federal judge in New Jersey in the 80s, and that ran out. And now and we
should say that consent decree literally ran out like 6 to 8 months ago. Yeah.
And this is the first presidential election also after, because of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, upending the requirement that southern states could change their electoral rules without running them by the Justice Department first. This is the first presidential election in which the old regime of vote suppression and minoritarian tactics, were fully in effect. So is there any surprise that a armed minority of people with pipe bombs, what was the plan? To create chaos. Once, there was literally setting up a gallows in front of the Capitol. People running around saying, where are they? This was the intent, to hang members of Congress. This was the operational plan.
What to the extent that we can sort of extrapolate out, and there's a lot that can happen in the next 2 weeks before Joe Biden is inaugurated, right? I mean, Chuck Schumer, like I say, came out maybe 25 minutes ago, maybe an hour ago, and said 25th Amendment, and if you fail to do that, then we impeach. And obviously
do that when the House are in their districts.
Obviously that you can't do that if the House is left, but they could, you got 2 weeks, take a weekend, come back. I understand. Believe me, I'd like to be coasting a little bit more too right now. But you got to do this.
Guys, you took an oath.
Yeah, honestly. Right. But let's assume regardless, they impeach at the very least. What it does is, and they failed to impeach. It almost doesn't matter. Like, you need to do this because it sets a marker and you are announcing to the country what is a bad thing to do and what is not a bad thing to do. And if you do not get up there and say this, this is very reductive, but this is all it really comes down to. You need to say, this is a bad thing. You cannot do this. Even if we're not effective in getting rid of the president, it's because Republicans are standing in the way of something that we all know was wrong. So the value of that is I think it's absolutely necessary, right? Regardless of what happens. These people are not going to go away any more than they haven't been here over the years. They may not be Trump people in 3 years. They may be the next thing, just like Sarah Palin is no longer, drawing the crowds that she did. And just like, we don't have Tea Partiers or moral majority or whomever, but these people continue, right? I mean,
we've probably discussed this before. Because we're so much on the same page on these things. But, Ford pardoned Nixon, we got Iran-Contra.
Yep.
Bush pardoned Iran-Contra. We got next Bush, torturing people, and doing all sorts of fourth branch stuff. We got Obama saying, look forward, not backward. And we got Trump. Well, there's no disincentive. It's the too big to fail ideology. And, there really will come a point in which, this is what people used to say, the Cold Warriors, the hardcore Cold Warriors used to say this about the Soviet Union, about why we had to stand up for them, and even at the risk of, nuclear war, they would say, it is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. And who else said that? That's what the people who put their lives on the line for civil rights said, right? We are those people, right? We have to take risks for the very functioning of our Republican form of government. And the people we elect who take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution have to do so, even if it makes them uncomfortable.
Is there a generational divide from your perspective in the way that younger Democrats, I don't know how else to phrase this. I mean, because I don't think it's a question of age as much as I do think it's cohort. Even, I look to Michigan and we can see Whitmer and Dana Nessel, maybe politicians who don't necessarily share the same, aren't in the same place as I am ideologically, but they understand that they're dealing with this is a Republican Party problem. This is not it's just a coincidence that Donald Trump is was nominated president by the Republicans. Yeah. They understand this is a Republican Party problem. AOC and we have Ilhan Omar, talking about impeachment.
Yeah.
Cori Bush holding to account those lawmakers who have introduced, we have basically a militant and political wing of the same entity, it seems to me. And we saw both of them on effect yesterday.
I'm losing track. Did I make the Sinn Féin and IRA?
No, please.
So like the guys who are robbing us with the fountain pens are Sinn Féin. They're the political party. The guys with the bombs out, the pipe bombs, out in the lawn of the Capitol are the IRA. They're the terrorists. And they're obviously, an operational, and, it's like they can distance themselves from one another as, tactically necessary. But no, I think the point you make about generation is a very powerful thing, right? Because young generations coming up, they don't know what's impossible, right? So like you have the kids in Florida, the gun control kids in Florida who didn't grow up hearing that it's impossible, to really take on gun control, right? So they push the ball forward, right? That in a way their elders could not, right? So we got, a generation of people who grew up listening to Majority Report with Sam Seder, reading Rick Perlstein books, and never knowing a Republican Party, that, like had cordials after work, right, with them, the Democratic Party, so I think there's an enormous amount of hope there. Change is difficult. It's hard. It takes a long time. There are lots of institutional barriers standing in the way. I know, people like to beat up on Joe Biden, but I think actually he kind of gets it. It's like, I think that he's speaking in very strong moral terms. There's a history. There's an old cliche that, what really creates change is Tory men and Whig methods, which basically means sort of like establishment people adopting left-wing ideas, right? So it was, John F. Kennedy being so freaked out by George Wallace standing in the schoolhouse door that he introduced a civil rights bill, right? And gave a speech saying this is a moral issue that all Americans, have to uphold, after being very, very reticent to take on the issue, to take on the Democratic Solid South. Right? Lyndon Johnson was seen as a conservative when he was nominated as John F. Kennedy's running mate in 1960. So I think, and this is to my brothers on the left, my brothers and sisters on the left, right? It's like we've beaten up on the centrists. We've beaten up on the old generation. We have to at least open up ourselves to the possibility that some of these people are going to rise to the occasion.
Hope springs eternal, I guess. Lastly, there has been over the past 24 hours a rash, maybe rash is too big of a word, some spotting of resignations from the Trump administration. Mick Mulvaney, who all of a sudden is just absolutely shocked.
Yeah,
Bill Barr, who activated the military to attack peaceful protesters so that Donald Trump could do a photo op, is outraged at what he saw yesterday.
Outraged, yeah.
Yes. I mean, what do we do as society, as members of society who don't have the ability to start impeachment? Of course, we need to press our leaders to impeach, but what do we do? I mean, there was controversy at one point where people were like, I don't know, pieing folks around the world, or where people were going to, I can't remember his name now, the general who was in Petraeus, and yelling at him when he was in, going from classes at NYU teaching.
Oh, right.
How effective, how important and how effective is this type of, I'm not saying that we should get violent, but I think the idea that people are made to be reminded of what part they have paid in this past 4 years, it seems to me very important.
Yeah. Are you Jewish, Sam?
I am.
Yeah. So my dad used to have a pin. He wasn't very political, but he used to wear a pin in Hebrew, and he wasn't really into Hebrew or Judaism, that he would wear it on his suit. It said Zachor. Do you know that word?
No.
Remember.
Remember.
History, progress is the act of winning the battle of memory against forgetting. So you're right. No quarter for these guys. Don't forget what they did. Don't forget what they're complicit with, right? A guy resigns, with 15 seconds left on the clock, does not get a free pass, right? These people should be ostracized. All those congressmen should, not be invited. If you're a media person, you got to freeze them out. These guys violated their oath of office. They're beyond the pale. If the Republicans won't hold them accountable, we have to use, and by we mean anyone really, has to use any power at their disposal to hold them accountable morally.
It's fascinating you say that, because I've been saying for the past couple of days, I keep remembering first, Gore Vidal back in the day when Janine and I used to do the Majority Report on radio. We had Gore Vidal in the studio, and he had just, I think, written United States of Amnesia. And I just couldn't grasp what he was talking about. And, 15 years later, having followed this stuff,
wisdom.
And now I'm like, yes, I get it. Like the idea that because the concept that all of what's taking place today is going to be inoperable, essentially, a year and a half from now.
I mean, that's what Nixon's spokesman said. Everything I said before is inoperative, right? Don't look. This is my goal for 2020. This is my resolution. It's like everyone to the left of center. I want to build trust. I want to build trust between generations, build trust between ideological factions. We all have a role to play.
2021 is your resolution. 2020 has already passed, fortunately. Rick Perlstein, national treasure. I can't thank you enough for coming on and giving us some perspective.
It's a pleasure. I think this was one of the most satisfying interviews I've done in a long time.
That's great. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Take care, Sam. Bye-bye.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. And I had mentioned at the top of the show that programmatically, we were looking for today to talk about what took place in Georgia. We were looking for today to talk about what the implications of the Democrats taking a 50-50 Senate. I still think it is very important that we not forget the lessons that we learned in Georgia, because they're not terribly dissimilar from this idea of that Democrats need to stand up to what is going on, and the idea that you need to be aggressive with these things, because the lesson that we learned from Georgia is contrary to the conventional wisdom that we were told following the disappointments from that we saw in terms of Congress this year. And that was that There is no liability when it comes to saying healthcare is a right for everyone. There is no liability to saying that we need some type of criminal justice reform. This election was won largely because you had activists on the ground driving people to the polls, literally and figuratively. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Lizette Ocampo. She is the political director for the People for American Way. We'll be right back. I'd like to welcome to the program Lizette Ocampo. She is the political director for the People for American Way. Lizette, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about Georgia, obviously, but obviously, yesterday we had some very disturbing stuff. I'm just curious as to, from the perspective of People for the American Way, like what is your take on that before we get to Georgia?
Well, obviously, it was terrorism, and we are pushing for the 25th Amendment. We think it's critically important that those that broke the law have received accountability, because we've seen over many years of activism that when you don't see this type of accountability, it only allows for a future type of this type of activity to continue.
And if not the 25th Amendment, are you going to join Chuck Schumer and hopefully, I mean, we will see. This has to emanate from the House in calls for impeachment.
We are not calling for calls of impeachment.
Now, I don't want to get sidetracked on this, but why not? I mean, if accountability is important, why is it just incumbent upon the Republican administration to hold this person to account? Why wouldn't we have elected leaders, regardless of their party, but particularly for the opposition party, if they don't signal that this is worthy of impeachment, how is that any different if Mike Pence decides it's not in his political benefit to invoke the 25th Amendment?
I think that we've seen throughout the presidency, and even since he announced his campaign calling, Mexicans rapists and drug dealers, that the Democrats have been pushing back on this rhetoric, have been pushing back on this hate. Progressives have been signaling that we saw this coming. Especially our right-wing watch team has been doing this work for a long time, that we saw the right wing, the power of the alt-right increasing. And so I think that Democrats have consistently been sounding the alarms, and it is important for Republicans to take leadership. And I think that right now, an impeachment process would seem to potentially create a type of partisanship among the public that could actually not be as helpful. I think that a lot of people have been lied to by this president. They believe him. And I think that they need to see leadership from their own party expressing that these are lies, because they have created credibility to what he's been saying.
All right. I don't want to, belabor the point too much, but my feeling is if the Republican Party will not show that leadership, then it is up to the Democratic Party to do that. And I think, the partisanship, it seems to me, have sailed. And I think that is, frankly, again, we're here to talk about Georgia, but I think that's a real failure. We can't expect anything of our leaders. There's no reason for us to expect the Democrats to do anything if we don't push them, and therefore there's no reason to expect the Republicans to do anything. Accountability has to be consistent, and if it's not, then it doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. But with that said, we're talking about partisanship. One of the things that happened in Georgia in terms of this runoff is that there seemed to have been no one convinced to vote one way or the other way relative to the way they had done in November. I just saw an analysis from Nate Cohn that there was very little change in Republican-leaning districts versus Democratic districts as to who they went for. What the story of this was just the Democrats brought out more voters.
I think there's a lot to be said when it comes to that. A lot of political analysts had said this is a turnout game. We need to make sure we turn out our side. We need to make sure if we turn out the people who turned out in November, we will win. However, I will also add that it was critically important. We've been doing this work in Georgia since 2014. We partnered with Stacey Abrams. We've known her for many years as her being part of our Young Elected Officials network that we've had for over 15 years. And we brought in our Latinos Vote program then. We were the first ones to do Spanish language political ads in Georgia. And we've been talking to the community. And I mentioned that because we did see in the Latino community an increase, according to the CNN exit polls, about 17% towards the Democratic candidate. And I think that is due to the fact that there was more communication and more outreach to the community. We did also do work there in the general election. We were able to do even more work there for the runoff. And we saw lots of groups and lots of local groups and national groups coming in to do that outreach. We also did that in the Black community. We reached out to Black male voters. We reached out to rural Black male voters and rural Black voters through our texting program, texting over 1.2 million texts to 400,000 Black voters in Georgia as well.
So I'm looking at some of this data. Turnout reached 93% of 2020 levels in November in precincts where Black voters represented at least 80% of the electorate. In comparison, turnout fell to 87% of general election levels in white working class precincts. My understanding is that at the very least, New Georgia Project knocked on 400,000 doors in 2020 election and 2 million in the runoff. I mean, so this is all, it seems to me, and this is basically the story, is that you had 92% of the 2020 turnout for Biden turned out in the runoff, and you had 88% of the general election turnout in the runoff. And so there's the difference right there. And it's hard to sort of assess, did the Trump cohort underperform, or did the Democratic cohort overperform? But it seems to me that if I'm running a campaign and you tell me for a special election that I'm going to get 88% of the vote that came out in an historic election in November, and they're going to come out, I'm going to be like, we're going to win. Except for I mean, this is really a story of what happens when you organize for years and then continue to organize right up until the moment that there's an election.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the New Georgia Project. They have been registering voters for a long time to get to this point where there is an electorate that more accurately reflects the population, that there is an opportunity to turn out those voters. And, you mentioned the comparison to the 2020 general. There's also comparisons being made to other presidential elections. Granted, populations change, and numbers change when it comes to the growth of the population, but to have not only, off election, but a special off election be compared to those types of turnout levels is absolutely an important story to be told when it comes to the years of organizing to be able to reach this type of turnout, and also the organizing that led up to this runoff, as you alluded to. And I will say, I'd like to make a comparison to Virginia, if I may, because we saw similar organizing in Virginia to turn that state blue, of consistent communication to communities.
Well, Lizette Ocampo, political director for the People for the American Way, thank you so much for coming on. And I can't let you go without encouraging once more for you guys to take a position on this impeachment thing. That is, you don't want Chuck Schumer to be out there, be the aggressive one when you're talking about holding Republicans to accountable. And I have a feeling my hope is, this moment of accountability is not going to go away. And in that case, impeachment's the only way for Democrats to hold Republicans to account and signal to the American public that you can't do this. You cannot answer politics with this type of violence. Appreciate your coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, we got just a couple more minutes. I mean, frankly, and I don't want to talk about people when they're not here after they've just been here, but I think I made it clear.
You made your
this is part of the problem that Rick Perlstein was talking about. This is the hesitance, and I imagine that there is, a dynamic where, you have these organizations that don't want to embarrass or put, Democratic leadership in an awkward situation. But if you cannot demand accountability, and if everybody does not do what they can do to hold these people to account, then under what circumstances, exactly what can they do that would require accountability? Honestly, how many people need to die in that assault on the Congress? Would we have needed a congressperson to die?
How many pipe bombs?
Had those pipe bombs gone off?
And the guy, there's apparently someone who was arrested by police who had a long gun and 10 other pipe bombs in his car. Who knows?
And the week's not over yet.
Yeah.
And the week is not over. And things may calm down for a while, just like they did after. Surely I can't be the only person who remembers people showing up with guns at a town hall about healthcare. And 10 years from now, whatever it's going to be, we're going to look back at this moment and we're going to see whether or not there were people who were held to account, whether political leaders who encourage this type of behavior were held to account. And if the Democrats do not start impeachment, regardless of whether it actually even goes anywhere other than Republicans stopping it, because
regardless of political considerations,
and frankly, I think the politics of this are quite good.
I agree. But even if
it wasn't, indeed, because part of our politics is also we want to have transitions between presidents that are not marred by enormous violence. That's also a political goal.
Apparently, the House is set to introduce articles of impeachment shortly. And Pelosi has a press conference in 30 minutes.
Bingo. Great news. Great way to end the show. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be reporting on these articles of impeachment.
Right.
And for those of you who are sticking around, the crew will be in here for the fun half. I am going to go and drink a bottle of CBD tincture and nap. I will concede that I was up for most of the night watching Josh Hawley be psychopathic and Lindsey Graham,
ex-president of the United States,
and Lindsey Graham, seeming to have just, I've never seen him have more fun on the floor of the Senate.
Lindsey Graham drunk was trending. I'm not going to comment on that. Could have been.
Yep.
Could have been.
All right. Well, let's let everybody in. Just a reminder, this program relies on your support. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you support the free show, and then we give you extra content. And sometimes you even get like a bonus, like a double bonus, where you see old Matt shows up in, he's got the best. You've got the best virtual background of anybody.
Right. Well, I'm going to go so far as to say not even just virtual. Are you in the studio right now?
I am in a studio. I'm in a remote studio.
And is that a real background behind you?
It is.
I think my background looks nicer.
I mean, I think it might be hard to argue with that assertion.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I'm with Emma. I don't know if that's true either.
Did I just talk you into being on my side for a minute?
Let me just remind everybody that Nomi is doing a show, and it'll be on at 3 p.m. On her program today, Judd Legum will be on, who's got a great newsletter.
I love his newsletter.
I can't remember what the name of it is now.
It's
popular
very
information.
Simple.
Popular information. Yes, exactly. Representative Rob and Professor Manuel Pastor will be on. So check out the Nomi Key Show. You can find it at youtube.com/the Nomi Key Show. Jamie, what's happening on the Antifada? You guys did a Twitch stream the other night, I know.
We did one yesterday. We actually started a bit early because things were happening and we wanted to talk about it. And we went for like 3 hours yesterday, and that's still up for anyone who wants to watch. We had on Matt Christman for like an hour. We talked about this. I don't even want to call it a coup attempt because I don't think they were terribly close to taking power, but certainly very concerning to us as watchers of the fash and students of history and, communists who would be executed in the streets if these people got what they wanted. So I encourage everyone to check that out at twitch.tv/the-antifada. Also, you're going to say something?
Well, I don't want to get sniggly, but I don't think you need to be good at it to attempt a coup. Let's put it that way.
I think I tweeted something yesterday that,
well,
a coup attempt that's poorly executed is still a fucking coup attempt.
I also think focusing on that there's a legislative branch of this and not just the idiots with guns outside, that this is a coordination thing.
Right. Well. I think that's important. Look, I think, we could bring on half a dozen academics and we could find 3 who say this is technically a coup and 3 that would say it's technically not a coup, it's a putsch or whatever it is. But the bottom line is I think people should keep this concept in mind, that this is not just what we witnessed in terms of, it's not exclusively those people who crashed the Capitol. It is the people who are in the Capitol voting to not certify. They are part of a whole. They are just different wings and have different roles in the context of what they were trying to do. Those, in fact, in many respects, you cannot have those people outside unless you have the people inside pretending that there was an actual offense that took place.
Yeah,
and make no mistake about it, that's what they were doing. They were basically laying the predicate. They were basically saying, what we're doing is just 2 + 2 =, and then you guys deliver the 4. And they knew that it wasn't 2, and they knew it wasn't the other 2. They were making that part up, but they were doing the equation, and they were basically saying and now guys, what are you going to do?
I feel like you can try. Bolivia isn't a great example because it's different, obviously.
No, but what's actually a really great example is Venezuela. Guaido is completely incompetent and couldn't pull off the U.S.-backed coup. But does that mean that it wasn't a coup attempt because he was horrible at, he was sold to the U.S. as some guy who could replace Maduro, but he didn't because he's not good at attempting a coup. It still was a coup attempt.
Yeah, I guess potato. I guess I just don't want to valorize these people in any way when it's a bunch of bootlicking piss babies throwing a temper tantrum.
Totally, but they're backed.
Who is usually attempting a coup.
But they're backed by people who actually have power, including over 100 members of.
We could talk about this in fun enough.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sure it'll be very fun to talk about this more.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. Yeah.
All right. So meanwhile, let me go on with the promos. Sorry, that was my fault.
No worries. I was about to tell you, usually I just plow through when you look like you're going to say something during my promos. So really it's my fault.
You shouldn't have stopped.
No, my bad. I know. We also released an episode yesterday with with Doug Lane from Zero Books talking about Christopher Lasch. I wasn't on this episode, so I'm not going to go into great detail. I'm sure it's very good. Also, check out our episode from last week with historian Mike Davis, who is amazing. And I'm so glad that I got to interview him. And look out for more Antifada every Wednesday and Friday, and sometimes other days when Sean plays video games at twitch.tv/theantifada.
Matt Binder, what is happening on Doomed these days?
Ooh, there were 3 episodes of Doomed already this week. YouTube.com/Matt Binder. On Monday, I did a live stream of the Trump, the final Trump as president rally in Georgia. And then on Tuesday, I did a post-Georgia election show, which was also a post-Majority Report post-Georgia election show.
Sorry about that. We went late.
And then last night I did a show on what happened at the Capitol. doomedpod.com for the podcast version of the show, youtube.com/Matt Binder for the live stream. You know, if you're looking to know what's going on with the right wing,
I was going to
my
say,
show's the place to do it. You know?
I was going to say, like, I could just imagine you watching all the video going like, I know that dude. That's Baked Alaska. That's blankety blank.
Right.
That's blankety blank. Like, you've been covering these guys for years.
Well, remember, we've been, you know, every time I've been a guest when you've been the host on Majority Report, we always talk about QAnon. And I've always said to you, beware of what QAnon does when Trump's gone, when Trump's no longer the president. And then yesterday, the guy known as the QAnon shaman is standing at the gavel on the Senate floor, you know? So, you know, it's.
Is he the one with the Viking horns?
Yes.
He's the QAnon shaman.
Yes, and the funny, like, this guy's been around for at least a year as a prominent QAnon face, because, you know, most QAnon people before, you know, the pandemic sort of brought it to the mainstream. Most QAnon people are just online, but he was a regular face at especially Trump events in Arizona. He had spoken outside of Trump rallies. He was he spoke as a personality at a Stop the Steal event right after November. But then what happened yesterday happened at the Capitol. The Republicans who are trying to be hands off on this now are claiming that the QAnon shaman is actually a secret member of Antifa all along.
Right, of course.
So yeah,
deep cover on the shaman.
I mean,
I would imagine
the style kind of.
One of the things that really sort of struck me that reminded me of, like, you know, how much you've been talking about with QAnon and Facebook, and we didn't, I don't know if we even pulled this video, maybe we did or not, and you guys can play it, but there is a video, and I have to say, I found it amusing. And not because this woman has been suffering. The woman comes out, she is talking to someone who's, I don't know, a reporter or somebody with a video camera, and the person says, were you maced? And she, yes, I was maced. I was, and she's like half crying, like, I was maced and it was horrible and this and that. And where are you from? I'm from, you know, Tennessee. My name is Elizabeth. I came up here and they maced me. And where did they mace you? In the Capitol. And like, why were you in the Capitol? Because it's a revolution. We were storming the building.
Oh my God.
I was like, did you think that you were going to attempt this revolution and storming of the Capitol, and it was just going to be like, oh, mace. I thought we were going to get cookies. I thought we were going to get cookies.
To be fair, it makes sense if she thought that the cops would be on her side. So there you go.
Well, we'll get into that for sure.
Matt Leck, what is happening in your corner of the world?
Big show tonight. Malika Jabal is going to be on Left Reckoning talking about all of this stuff. I mean, originally we're going to be talking about how we pushed Joe Biden. Things have changed a little bit. We will be talking about that, but also talking about this stuff. So tonight, Left Reckoning, and we're also going to be doing a post game for members. So this is the first night we're doing the members only post game. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning if you want to get all that.
All right. Before I sign off, I just got an IM from Chomsky Honk. Sam, longtime member and huge fan. Could I get a shofar for my father who passed away yesterday from COVID? He was a loving man and a natural comedian who touched so many lives. He fought so hard, but alas, COVID wrenched life from his clenched fist. R.I.P. Fred Adams. This goes out to Fred. I'm very, very sorry for your loss. So sorry. Horrible. All right, folks. See you. Well, these guys will see you in the fun half. I will be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Yep.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1 half. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Well, hello, everybody, and Happy New Year from me. It's my first time back on the show in 2021. So, hello, Emma. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Matt. Hello, Brendan.
Hey.
Hello.
Starting the new year off with a bang, huh?
Right, yeah. Storming the Capitol.
I can't wait. I don't even know like what universe we're going to be living in 11 months from now when we're like, oh yeah, QAnon shaman was this year, lol. Can you believe that?
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. when he's somehow elected to Congress and
yeah.
I
mean,
stormed the Capitol.
Josh Hawley is making a bid for that now. I mean, I will say this guy wants to be president so badly.
He definitely, I would say. I mean, I don't know if it'll. I don't think it'll affect those presidential aspirations. But in terms of looking dumb, he sure shot himself in the foot by supporting this stuff because he's the guy who wasn't, like Ted Cruz. I feel like he knew what he was getting himself into. Josh Hawley truly looked like, what have I done?
Yeah, well, he was calculated with the $2,000 checks too. I mean, I just think he's very much making decisions strategically for a Republican primary.
He's grandstanding.
The party is effectively splitting, I think, which is sort of interesting considering that both factions ultimately serve capital and the status quo at the end of the day. But Mike Davis put out an interesting and timely piece about it that I encourage everyone to read.
Well, both
Running
factions
back for the Carolina Panthers. Sorry.
Both factions are splitting though, basically just based on how they want to be perceived. They still both sides of this split in the GOP both believe the exact same thing. It's just that one side wants full responsibility for what happened because they're proud of what happened. And the other side doesn't want any responsibility for what happened because they want to get what they want by just going about it a different way.
Well,
that's the two factions.
You bring up Josh Hawley, which I think is interesting because I was saying on Monday that I am a little bit scared that this, new Trumpist wing psychopaths, whatever you want to call them, are going to merge with maybe the more reactionary elements of like force the vote or things like that to create this kind of vague European style populist party, aka a fascist one that includes both social democratic elements that go against the mainstream Republican Party and, reactionary, racist, anti-immigrant ones, etc.
Right.
Absolutely right.
Well,
you brought up forced to vote, and I just want to say, there's that whole conversation about who's a true leftist based on support of forced to vote. Which, by the way, Emma and Jamie, I see you guys are no longer truly leftists. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I want to put this out there I'm on YouTube right now. I'm a YouTuber, and so this is the new. This is what now makes you a leftist, in my opinion. It's no longer forced to vote. I'm starting #storm the vote. And you're not a true leftist if you don't storm the Capitol for Medicare for all. I'm telling you this right now. Forced to vote's
guys. Yeah, I can't. We talked a lot about forced to vote, and I know this is the fun half, and we're gonna have fun. I'm just so still disturbed by yesterday. We have to get into some of these clips or I'm going to explode.
It's going to be, I don't want to tell you it's going to be okay because things are clearly not okay, but
I don't need things to be okay. I just need to inform everybody about how fucking serious this is. So let's, I just want to talk about the Capitol Police and their complicity in this white supremacist nonsense for the most part. So let's jump into it.
Maybe with the Morning Joe clip first, because I feel like when somebody like that says something correctly, we should hold them to that and hope that other people follow.
All right, cool. So everybody saw the disturbing images from yesterday. If you haven't seen it yet, there was a viral clip of Capitol Police opening the doors for the insurrectionists, sometimes filled with white supremacists, all Trump supporters who broke glass and invaded the United States Capitol, desecrated the Congress members' offices, including Nancy Pelosi's. It was a violent scene. One woman has died, a Trump supporter, and 3 others by gunfire, presumably by police, we believe right now, and 3 others died from other medical issues. Yeah, I just was trying to be as precise as possible. So, yeah, by the hands of police there. The Capitol Police were entirely unprepared. There were some instances where they did resist and did try to hold this mob back, these terrorists back. But there was a video that showed them letting them in. And Joe Scarborough, an unlikely ally here, responded to this on MSNBC. So just so you know how severe this is the reaction from Joe Scarborough.
If these insurrectionists were black, they would have been shot in the face. And my God, if these insurrectionists were Muslim, they would have been sniped from the top of buildings. So I want to know from the Capitol Hill Police, what is it? Is it just white people? Or is it Donald Trump supporters? Why do you scream at people for walking across the street 3 blocks away from the Capitol? Why are you known as badasses around the Capitol? But then Trump supporters come in and you open the fucking doors for them. Oh my God. You open the doors for them and let them breach the people's house. What is wrong with you?
Okay, so there's a lot to discuss there. Partly why Scarborough is behaving like that is because, yes, he was a former member of Congress, and they lionize and they romanticize the institutions of the United States. But the other part of that's the most cynical interpretation of that. But the other part of that is that it's that fucking outrageous, what we just saw yesterday, that is a moment in history that I was surreally witnessing on the show and couldn't stop thinking about. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way. As much as I'm a cynical person about our government, seeing these wannabe terrorists, and in some instances, I don't know if the pipe bomber was involved here and was in the Capitol, right? Or if there were multiple, but just posing and desecrating and vandalizing the Capitol building, it was a visceral image.
Well,
Scarborough responds in kind.
The thing that I think is important to remember is we left air yesterday not knowing I mean, they could have killed. Those were armed people getting into the Congress building, and like the person, if people have the stomach for it, the shooting of the woman who was trying to break through a door is pretty amazing footage. And I don't know if you make that call, but the guy is sitting there around a corner, and you can see the gun pointing out. And the second the woman comes through a barrier where there's probably like Congress people barricaded behind their doors. I mean, that's what was going on yesterday, and I think it's pretty gross. Michael Tracy being foremost among the fucking idiots that are minimizing this to an absurd degree. I understand that you can applaud restraint, and like I don't think they should have just shot them in the face like Scarborough says there. But this was a horrific, like the possibilities here were horrific. Like those guys had guns. They had to scramble downstairs. We didn't hear from certain members of Congress for a long time. And I mean, it could like that one woman getting a shot. What happens if somebody behind her among the Trump people takes out his piece? Right. All of a sudden, you have a major gunfight in Congress.
What happens if they get in contact with Ilhan Omar or Ocasio-Cortez?
Exactly. They got in Pelosi's office, and so they had a noose outside. So like I think the people that are saying like I would put Michael Tracy as the cartoon for this, but I think there's a lot of people, frankly, that are flirting with it. But what happened yesterday was fucking appalling, and like I agree that they shouldn't have been like massacred. And like in a situation where you are outmanned, retreating is probably the best case scenario. At the same time, there needs to be mass arrests for these people because this absolutely cannot be tolerated.
Right, but here's the thing. I think so many people are paying attention to, and it's good they are because they obviously are responsible. The Trump supporters who stormed and broke into the Capitol, but there really isn't. Scarborough did it on MSNBC, but overall, I'm not hearing that much about the police. And the fact of the matter is that this wasn't. I know this event was planned for a long time in terms of a rally and a mass group of Trump supporters all heading down to D.C. And in an effort to do
encouraged by
something.
Trump himself, he spoke and said, "I'm going to walk with you," and then he got in his limo and he went and hid in the White House. But that after sparking this,
absolutely. So the police knew about all this. The police knew about all of this, but at the same time, there was no real organized effort down there between the Trump supporters to actually do anything. They didn't know what they were doing. This happened because the police let it happen. Now, whether that was done on purpose or whether it was just purely the police not being prepared, either way, it was unacceptable for that to happen. I mean, we've seen that the police could get their act together when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Again, like you guys said, like Scarborough says, and when it comes to left-wing activists, they somehow know how to manage that and make sure that they get arrested for just marching down a street. But when it came to this moment, there were multiple videos out there, and I think we have one of them that's the most eye-opening, of just a little fenced barricade and maybe a dozen cops at most at one checkpoint to stop a gaggle of hundreds of Trump supporters marching to the Capitol. I mean, I don't know how that happens when they've been talking about this online for months, when Trump has been saying he wanted this to happen for months. Trump specifically on Monday at the Georgia rally said that he hopes Pence overturns the election and it's going to happen January 6th. And if he doesn't, there's going to be problems. And then on the
they have MAGA Civil War sweatshirts made up with the date on them.
Yeah, let's watch the clip Matt referenced, and then Jamie, I want you to weigh in.
Well, thank you.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just breached the Capitol again.
Now, I just want to point out, actually, because the reporter who took that TikTok video has come out and pushed back on the fact that the narrative around that video is the police let them through. And he said it wasn't the police that moved the barricades, it was the Trump supporters. But I think the reporter is actually missing the point there. If you watch the video, you do say it's the Trump supporters who moved the barricade. And which follows is that the police literally go, "Oh, well, guess that's all we can do." And they start walking alongside the Trump supporters, just giving up, not even stopping them. You could see, actually, if you could replay that video, if you look very closely, there's a Trump supporter that goes over to one of the cops there and gives him a big old hug for letting them through. I don't know if you caught it the first time, but you can see it here if you watch and pay attention right in the middle.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go.
Right there. You see the cop
And
drop
they
something,
just
has to
reached
pick
the
it up
Capitol
after
again.
he gets hugged.
Now, I just want to say quick before you guys opine, regardless of like the circumstances around this clip, say for instance there's another clip going around saying it was the real start of it, which was more contentious, and let's say that was another area on the perimeter that had been breached elsewhere, and they were just like, all right, fine guys, we're going to let this perimeter go. That could be a solution for what happening, but the imagery is clear, right? Like absolute like retreat by the Capitol Police, and whether it's underpreparement. I mean, if I was a Capitol Police officer, I would be wondering which of my colleagues had some sort of inside info or were a bit lax in holding the perimeter, because like that's the type of thing that'd be going through my mind, particularly ahead of the inauguration.
Yeah. So there was a funny tweet that went viral. I don't know if you guys saw someone basically saying, why is everyone asking where the cops are? Do you ask where Miley Cyrus is when Hannah Montana's on stage? Which, you know, for you guys who don't know, though, they're the same person.
They're the same person. Yeah. Come on. Disney Channel.
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very astute observation, because these guys, you know, they might be fighting the cops a little bit because the cops do have to do their job to some degree, but, you know, they're pals, they're bootlickers. Like I almost feel bad for them because they feel so betrayed by their beloved, you know, boys in blue, their beloved, their pig friends. But
the head of the NYPD tweeted, the NYPD would never let this happen. And I saw someone replied and said, well, a lot of the off-duty ones are there right now. Like,
shit.
There's no factual basis. We don't know, but like talking about white supremacy independent of policing is fiction. It's fantasy at this point. There is a clear connection, and it's never been starker than the images of Black Lives Matter protests at the Capitol and the preparedness of cops when none of them did anything remotely close to what we saw yesterday. Can you imagine? I mean, like what Scarborough said there is on point. I can't believe that's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
They would kill the Black Lives Matter protesters and they'd snipe Muslims they'd blow them up. They don't care.
Oh, absolutely. And if it were communists, we would be probably killed before we even got there, which is why one of many reasons why we haven't tried that yet. But what I was going to say was, I think it's
Storm the Capitol, Jamie. Storm the Capitol.
I think it's really important. I mean, look, from your mouth to God's ears, honey. We ain't there yet. I think it's really important to look at this from an abolitionist angle, right? Because I do think a lot of these people are acting in good faith when they point out, oh, if it were Black Lives Matter protesters, they would be really, really tear gassing them and getting them under control. Like it's not okay when the cops do that to anybody.
Yeah.
And I worry that this will set a precedent and provide an excuse for a beefing up of the bipartisan security state that will come down primarily on the left and primarily on people of color fighting for their rights, right? Like, it's very easy for me to draw a straight line from this to, you know, increase funding for the police budgets, increase funding for security in all different areas. So that really does concern me about this. But I don't know if there's a reason I'm not like as upset as the rest of you right now. I think it's because I'm just used to being upset about this stuff, and it's kind of I kind of alternate between being actively upset about it and being sort of detached and trying to take the long view on it, or a thing that Sean and Matt call the 1,000-year stare. You know, like I think it's most important to understand what's happening and place it in its proper framework as a result of many processes of economic crisis, of structural white supremacy, and maybe use it as an opening at least to talk about the ways that we could resolve this crisis and the ways that we can...
And a cult of personality that we've allowed to take over the United States and a significant portion of the population, aided and abetted and pushed forward by the Republican Party because they felt it was in their immediate electoral and financial interests.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think it is a good chance for the organized left to seize upon the moment and use it to make the case for the only thing, the prerequisite to defeating fascism for real is defeating capitalism. And if you believe in democracy, we need to be fighting on all fronts for economic democracy, for democracy at the ballot box. And the DSA actually had a very good tweet to that effect saying, if you want to fight against fascism and for democracy, you need to join a leftist organization because we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and Jamie's not saying this, but I think other people like that this is rural America waking up. As somebody who was born to non-college educated parents and from North Dakota, I just want to say it really pisses me off when people can't understand the difference between just frothing at the mouth reactionaries and working people from the Midwest. Yeah. So maybe let's not do that.
Oh, absolutely.
The funny thing is there was a clip going around of a director of human resources at an insurance company inside the Capitol that it was going because he posted a video of himself storming the Capitol. And this is like a lawyer, like an educated lawyer who's an executive
that's the
in an
economic
insurance
element
company.
to this.
Like that's who stormed the Capitol. It's those types.
There's videos of them hanging out in hotels.
There's a video. This guy is literally saying, "We're the small business owners," right? Like a lot of words have been spilled trying to analyze and determine the class character of this quote unquote movement.
But
there
that's why
it is.
I don't. But that's why I hear what you were saying, Jamie, about it being about class, and the overall Trump movement is completely interconnected with class. But these specific people. Like they're
don't misunderstand them. I think this is where people misunderstand this all the time. It's not that they're deprived; it's that they've been empowered by the class system. So that's why you need to attack. It's not because you need to give them $2,000 so they stay home. It's that this class of people has been there since literally at least Bacon's Rebellion earlier. This is the let's take Indian lands trader type guys. Mm-hmm. This is who that is. And
they're fighting for their class interests as small business owners, which they do perceive, and in some cases correctly, to align with Trump's program, because we are in a time of economic crisis. They are not financially deprived, but they are anxious about becoming proletarianized, becoming workers, because when a capitalist fails in this country, they become a worker, right? You can either exploit people or you can be exploited. Those are the two choices. So it makes sense that they would stand in favor of economic nationalism and against things like, a $15 minimum wage, single payer healthcare, things that empower workers, right? They're looking forward to a future where they remain exploiters and small business owners. And as such, they identify more with Trump's economic program than anything to the left of him.
Well, speaking of Trump, I do want to get to clip number 7. So in the middle of all of the chaos and the insurrection attempt yesterday, when Trump supporters, by his own attempts to radicalize them and basically egg them on, they stormed the Capitol building, they defaced it, they vandalized it. Rudy Giuliani said that there was going to be trial by combat. I mean, this was very much by design. Trump got freaked out in the middle of it, probably because one of his lawyers told him, you could be facing legal consequences for inciting a riot and potentially encouraging sedition here. So maybe you want to make a statement and tell people to stop committing violence and storming the Capitol building so that all the lawmakers are effectively hostages right now and are sheltering in place. Spoiler alert, it was woefully insufficient and embarrassing, his statement.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Okay. So we began the Trump era nominally. Part of the beginning of his presidency was Charlottesville. Very good people on both sides. And now we have your beautiful people. Is that what he said? We love you. And your cause is righteous. Just the methods of what you're doing are wrong, right? Like the whole kind of breaking into the nation's capital and vandalizing it and causing violence.
Not even, it's just being mean to the law enforcement officers.
Right, exactly.
Cool. Everything
I'm
is cool.
sorry, Matt, for being way too generous with his position there. You're totally right. And so then he starts by saying it's a landslide election, and then he ends by saying we won the election. He says it twice. And what drives me crazy about this is like, okay, yes, I'm proud that or happy that the media is covering this with the anger that it righteously deserves, that it does deserve. But they're going to let the Republican Party off the hook. You know that they're going to let the Republican Party off the hook as a whole. There are very reasonable Republicans on this side. Basically, what Mitch McConnell and the entire Republican Party did is they enabled this egotistical maniac to burn down everything in his wake and hitch their ride to him for short-term electoral benefits and potentially financial benefits for themselves, knowing that there's no validity to his claims. It's all about soothing one guy, and they're willing to burn down everything in order to be cucks to him because they know whatever he says goes electorally for them. And this is the consequences of that. Like, you guys already got a tax rate that was slashed for corporations from 35% to 21% now? You guys got your Supreme Court justices. You guys got all of this destruction and you looted the government. We get it. That's your job. That's what your donors tell you to do. That's what your ideology is. But just leave it alone at this point. You've done enough damage. And it's broken. It's broken.
I think if the electoral left can take anything positive from this, it should be a really good thing to hold up and say, okay, any Democrat who says at this point that we need to listen to these people or compromise with these people should be primaried from the left.
100%.
Bare minimum.
Well, Biden believes that once Trump is gone on January 20th, all the Republicans are going to wake up and work with him. I mean,
that was a laughter sound effect for that.
Message. We got to wait 4 years to primary him.
Well, it'll go back. I mean, I think that's the thing about the cult of personality is it was able to unify the Republicans in a way that they couldn't without him. There's literally no one in the 2012 or 2016 anytime. Like Trump is, they need celebrities, right? This is why they went to Reagan too. Like they need that. And the thing that won't go away though is the latent reactionary force that has been here that Reagan took advantage of. And I feel like there's another example before that I'm mistaken. Yeah. But yeah, like this is like. It's just going to go back to the Tea Party freaks. Like, it's still the problem. It's just not going to have. Have multiple heads.
It will be interesting to see if they can ultimately be recuperated into the Republican Party mainstream, like the Tea Party was, right? Because those are just normal Republicans now, and like we were talking about earlier, there's not a real ideological split in between these factions, although there is a real split happening. This movement's going to be looking for a new head for a while. It'll be interesting to see if they can make the jump from Trump to somebody else, or if Trumpism literally is just things to do with Donald Trump, the person. But
I think Trump will end up just being like a shadow president. He's going to have a response to everything Biden does, and that's going to be the Republican Party position.
Oh, but what I was going to say was, like, won't it be weird 5 years from now when these people are just part of the Republican Party and like QAnon shaman is there on business and he's actually allowed to be there, dressed up like the Yellow King from True Detective. And, they're like, the House recognizes the senator from Carcosa. It's just business as usual.
That's hilarious. Carcosa, I haven't heard that in a while. Matt, though, I mean, bringing up Reagan, I want to watch that Showtime Reagan documentary, by the way, but it's all cyclical, and that's what's crazy about this. I mean, I'm obviously very pissed today, but this is so quotidian with Republicanism, and it's been this way in different iterations of it, and they do need that cult of personality to push it forward because it's so flimsy. But that's really what a lot of this rests on. And so I hear you guys about the economic arguments, and 95% of the time I totally agree. But I think it's important to identify the fact that what strings a lot of this together is basically blind fealty to one guy and the force of his personality. And
that element struck me as you can finish. Actually,
I mean that's mostly it. I mean, it just like he could say anything. He could come out with Medicare for all tomorrow. He could do whatever he wanted, and that core is just going to go anywhere with him. And so I think that's emotional and independent of a lot of the ideology that we're talking about.
And I think, like, on that note, that's what interested me about the Raffensperger, or is it Raffensperger or Berger tape?
Raffensperger. It's
which is to hear Trump just bully those guys who have been just like, this has been their, like, they've been doing this for longer than Trump has. I mean, Trump is, played in politics, but, he only started doing it when he won the job. And these guys get, like, Raffensperger, Trump's like, you'd have to be a child to think that I lost the election. Just saying literally stuff like that. And I do, it is amazing to me how much of that these guys have put up with. Like, grow a fucking backbone, you nerds. Yeah, and that's why it's interesting to listen to that stuff, because it's like, how do you have any, like, especially now that Trump's gone, right? I'm interested to see if some of those people are like, what? I'm not going to fucking, this guy can't even win. This guy lost us both, like, 2 elections in Georgia. Like, enough of this.
Well, imagine the state officials, though, who didn't even have the fortitude to drop a recorded version of one of those calls. Like, imagine how lame they are on the phone, Trump, in terms of just giving in to whatever he says to them on the call.
He flew them out and gave them Dom Perignon, like, right, thousands of dollars of champagne. Like,
imagine the conversation. Imagine Pence's reaction to there was a Pence conversation. Trump really, really tried to get Pence to do something yesterday and overturn the election results. Imagine how small Pence acted in those conversations.
Yeah.
Imagine.
He's cooked. But anecdotally speaking, at least, I think we have something to be optimistic about in that this is like a minority of a minority, the people who are doing this shit, because, like, okay, my friend's crazy MAGA dad, who I use as a barometer for crazy MAGA dads everywhere, even he thought that this was insane. Like, he took the same position as Trump. He's like, yes, they stole the election. No, we can't be doing that. So that gives me a little bit of hope that this is, a minority of a minority faction, and it was largely organized on social media. Like, there's not like a real organizational structure behind it. Groups like the Proud Boys might have been present, but I would be a lot more concerned if it was evidence of like some kind of real grassroots movement.
But it's about to be normalized, Jamie, by Fox. Like, they're already saying it was Antifa undercover. Like, this is how this starts. It's also about to be mainstreamed as it's okay.
I mean, in that way, we should play that Ainsley Earhart clip.
Yeah. Well,
let's do that.
And the Antifa one.
Okay, so hold on. Let me just quickly find. This is my I'm trying to get my feet wet with introducing these clips, right?
No, it's all good.
Go for it.
Good. Yeah. Okay. So we want 10, right?
Oh, while you look for that, look at this. Apparently, Chuck Schumer is saying that when he takes control of the Senate at the end of this month, later this month, he will fire the Senate Sergeant at Arms if he doesn't vacate the position by then. So, they're definitely finally placing some blame where it should be.
I mean, I'm liking the energy from Schumer. I must say it's from when I started doing the show, it's a little bit there's a pronounced difference. So at least, he's presenting well.
That's good. All right, we're going to do, I guess, 11 here. So Ainsley Earhart of Fox and Friends continues to apologize for Donald Trump's instigating of mass riots and terroristic acts by pretending that he won the election when he obviously didn't. And now apparently she's turned on Mike Pence. Mike Pence, who didn't go fully along with this, he's the bad guy.
You know what? Mike Pence can just wave that magic wand. It'll all be fixed.
I hope that doesn't taint their relationship, because they have been such supporters of one another and been a good team. Because Donald Trump.
How can it be good after that?
I'm sure it won't be, but I hope that, I hope the president will be able to forgive him, because Mike Pence is such a stellar individual.
Just pause it for a second. I'm sorry. The idea that the takeaway from yesterday is the Pence-Trump relationship probably being on the rocks is hilarious. And then she follows it up with, I hope Trump can forgive Pence.
Right. He's the one in the wrong. She ships them, right? So it's like her favorite anime couple. They broke up and now she wants them to get back together.
It's sad when that happens. Come on.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, when I was 11 and Rory and Jess broke up on Gilmore Girls, it really shook me.
Is there more to that clip?
Yeah.
A stellar individual. His walk with God is amazing. I mean, he's a good man, and both of them have done a lot to help the country, and I hope that they can move forward and move past this and just agree that there were differences. I'm sure the president feels like I'm responsible for him becoming vice president, so he should have done this for me. But the president, as you've been saying all along, Brian, the vice president has stood by his side and supported him all along the way. So hopefully their friendship won't end after this, for the good of the country.
I bet you it's done.
Yeah, I know. So
this is the way you talk about, like, acquaintances who are married and separated, but they have kids. And you're like, oh, man, I really hope they work that one out. Not the tag team of people who took the country to a point where we're in an economic depression, nearing 400,000 COVID deaths, in the next weeks. And also there was just an insurrection attempt, and the Capitol building was broken into, and Mike Pence himself had to hide from Trump's own supporters because they thought they were going to tie him up and assassinate him. I hope that relationship can be mended, though.
Well, this is how politics operates for these people and for a lot of the people participating in this thing too, right? It is in the realm of the spectacle. It is in the realm of the media. Trump is a celebrity. Let's not forget that. So it's not that surprising that people would engage with this the same way that they engage with a Hollywood tabloid, and that they would think they're participating in an action movie when they decide to, get involved, or whatever we want to call it.
Right. I know this is what you're saying, but let me make this absolutely clear. They're not even talking about politics, because Trump and Pence will no longer be president and vice president in less than 2 weeks. They're literally worried about Trump and Pence's families getting together for a summer vacation at the pool or something like that. Who cares if they never talk to each other again? It doesn't affect the country. It doesn't affect the politics of this country. They could hate each other. They never have to work with each other again after the next 2 weeks.
And do you actually think they would hang out? Like, that's the other thing.
Right.
That's the other thing.
Right.
Let's talk
they
about
probably
that for a
do
second.
think they hang out. They probably do think they hang out, but you are right that they probably don't.
Yeah, they're basically like the people that think the characters on TV and the sitcoms are the same person in real life. But no, they're performing this. Trump doesn't want to hang out with a guy like Mike Pence. Mike Pence probably can't even show his knees if they want to go to the pool. He doesn't want to even show his forearms. That's too salacious for him.
Right. Trump probably looks at Pence like Homer Simpson looks at Ned Flanders, and Pence probably looks at Trump like Ned Flanders looks at Homer Simpson.
Right, diddly-ite.
So Ainsley Earhart didn't stop there. Her gorgeous commentary that just hits at the pulse of what's happening today continued on Fox and Friends this morning.
Several things we can learn from this as well, guys. After George Floyd died, we all learned that we need to take a hard look at police reform. And there were a lot of riots then, and we all can.
Who's we all? Because Fox News audience certainly did not learn that. If the Fox News talkers right there on the screen did not learn that. I mean, who are they talking about?
Yeah, just stay with her, all right? She's making an analogy. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah. Let's go down this maze a little bit further, or rabbit hole, as it were.
Several things we can learn from this as well, guys. After George Floyd died, we all learned that we need to take a hard look at police reform. And there were a lot of riots then, and we all condemned them. The three of us condemned those riots. Businesses were burned down. It was terrible. Innocent people's lives were changed because of that. And then what we saw yesterday, what can we learn from this? They want election reform. We need to find a way to fix the election system so that every single American has faith in the election and trust and that there's integrity. And we also have learned that the majority of those individuals down there were peaceful, just like we learned in the peaceful protest after George Floyd. The majority are not violent. But
That's
a few
not
bad
what you were
apples
saying.
taint the entire group.
Right, but Ainsley, when you look at those images, and that we understand is how the protesters were able to get into the Capitol building. Somebody using a Capitol police officer's shield broke that window, jumped in, and then went and opened some of the doors.
I don't understand why this needs to be clarified, but because it's Fox and Friends, it does. There is a very important difference between violence and looting that came as a byproduct of organic protests against police brutality and for racial justice, a long fight that we've seen that has taken way too long in this country, and insurrectionists radicalized by the president who's denying the results of a democratic process, breaking into the nation's capital with police shields, breaking through windows, and apparently they were holding zip ties. Apparently they wanted to take hostages. That's what people are saying, right?
Yeah.
Little bit of a substantive difference.
That there's a difference, but I do think there is an analogy to be made, not in the sense that they're making it, and it's an opposite analogy. But I've heard some folks on the left comparing this to the burning of the police precinct in Minneapolis. And I think that is an interesting comparison to make because yes, just on the opposite side of things, I participated in these protests along with many of my comrades in the George Floyd uprising. And we do want to overthrow the U.S. government and capitalism for in favor of a greater democracy and a greater humanitarianism that treats everyone's life as having intrinsic value. And a symbol of that insurrection, an echo of the possibilities to come, was the burning of that police precinct. Largely symbolic, right? It's going to be rebuilt and the police are still going to exist. But it was a crack in the armor and a vision of what might be possible. Now, these people, on the other hand, this is not a revolution. These people are bootlickers, the people who invaded the Capitol. This is not a revolution. It's a coup in favor of the status quo, if anything. And no, they were not close to actually taking power. However, it does seem like they crossed a red line of their own. The senators came back. Everything's going to go back to normal. The state put it down fairly quickly, but it's a symbol for them. It's an opening. It's a crack for them, showing what might be possible in the future. And on that level, I am concerned about it, to say the least.
I don't get. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
There's a the liberal thing about, and I'd say this as like the anti-protester liberal, that any sort of violent protest is bad, which basically collapses what Mandela was doing against apartheid to end slave rebellions to actual race riots, like in Tulsa, for instance, right? There's a difference between form and content. And if those people were storming Congress like that for something righteous, I think there is, and Sam even put they're starving. I think that there is a difference, and we can cite that. We don't have to be fundamentalists and say all types of this protest are bad and not look at the content of it. This was a reactionary, anti-democratic coup attempt, or a show of force, whatever it was. And
Matt, just so you know, it's hard to hear you a little bit, your mic's going in and out. Yeah.
Yeah,
right. But
that's what needs to form and content, folks. Different things.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with Matt. And it's the people who think yesterday is analogous in any way. It's like the burning of a police station after a police killing of an unarmed black man. It's honestly just anti-establishment for the sake of being anti-establishment. There's no politics there. There's no ideology there. Like when.
Well, I just told you the analogy, but we're on opposite sides. The people who burned the precinct and the people who support it and the people who stormed the Capitol. These are opposite sides of a fight that will continue to unfold.
On that note, can I just say real quick before my mic goes, 45% of Republicans approved of what happened yesterday, but a lot more of the general population approved of what happened to the precinct because they understand that the content matters. What people are protesting matters.
Yeah. And because the numbers are on our side, right? Like, this is a minority of the population that is doing this stuff. Yes, they have an outsized amount of power and privilege within the current system, but there are more of us than there are of them. And I think we need to remember that.
Okay. Sorry, go on, Matt.
I was actually going to bring up on the based off of that Fox News clip we just played. I'm surprised they didn't go full bore into what I saw Sean Davis, co-founder of the Federalist, try to shape the narrative yesterday. He said how on Twitter, he took to Twitter yesterday, a couple hours after this first went down, and he tweets, "I've talked to multiple people today who arrived at the Capitol and believed it was open. They thought they were allowed to be in there, which might explain why you saw so many people."
Wait, who tweeted this?
Sean Davis, co-founder of the Federalist.
Oh my God, of course.
Now, the idea that they thought they could do this as they're walking over to the broken glass on the floor and climbing through the window openings where that glass once stood is just unbelievable to me. And my analogy to the Fox thing was, I'm surprised they didn't follow this up by saying what yesterday really showed is there needed to be like a new entrance way for the Capitol. There needed to be a new whole system to get people to enter the Capitol. There was just confusion there yesterday, and that's why this occurred. I mean, give me a break. Did they also think that they could take random items from senators and House members' offices as souvenirs? Did they think that's something just anyone could do?
Yeah, I mean,
ridiculous.
I like.
Now, Mike, what I'm thinking though is I know we talked about this split in the GOP and how there's the half, they both want the same thing, but there's the half who are proud of yesterday and the half who don't like yesterday. Now, the question is, what if yesterday was successful in actually doing what they wanted to do? What if somehow they actually threatened enough Congress people yesterday to overturn the election results somehow? Would that same half poo-pooing it actually have been for it because it just ended up successful so they wouldn't have egg on their face and look like idiots for being part of a group of people who failed so miserably while also being so over-the-top ridiculous? That's one thing that I keep thinking about.
I don't know. I mean, I think we should be careful because I don't think we should overstate the threat that this action posed to the actual order of things in the government, right?
I don't know.
They never came close to taking power. They didn't even know what to do once they got inside. They like walked around, they took selfies.
But it's not about them. It's not just about them. It's about the over 100 Republicans in the House and the dozen of senators in the Senate who legitimized this. That's the difference. Like, if they were just acting without any representation in the government, we could dismiss it maybe. Even though I think dismissing it is dangerous because there was a culmination that led to this point, and it's backed by people in power. Like,
and also
this is true,
also,
but how?
And if the election was closer, it would have happened.
I don't believe that the faction that backed this is going to maintain any sort of power within the Republican Party. I think if anything, this is going to sort of cleanse the Republican Party of its Trumpist elements while still remaining very reactionary, but they're going to be able to make a big show of how, oh, we're not crazy like those people. We're just regular Republicans. We're just normal reactionaries. And
but here's the thing though, the fact that it wasn't an organized movement of people down down there in terms of actually planning anything specific to achieve their goals. It just shows that obviously, the fact they were able to do what they did without any of that is just insane to begin with. But also,
our job is going to be harder than their job for sure.
Right. But also, though, you have to understand this was an entire thing fomented by misinformation and conspiracy theories spread on the internet. Yes, spread also by Congress people and the Trump administration.
By the president. The president.
But they got this stuff too through hearing Trump on Facebook, hearing Trump on Twitter. These people are always connected. Everyone who went down there yesterday could never return, and enough people could show up at the next rally event to match the same numbers because they're moved by what they're seeing online and they believe it because they're being hit over the head on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere they look online. And because that's where they get all their news, then that's what they believe is the facts, because they don't understand how the media is right now. They just don't get it. So when they're seeing all this stuff in their news feed, they're saying, oh, the election is being stolen from Donald Trump. We need to go down there and do something. This date is what matters. That's what we see in this story.
Play six. Let's play six.
I wish that these kinds of facile online tactics worked as well for the left as they do for the right. But ultimately, are they going to work for the right in their outcomes? I don't believe so. Perhaps I'm just trying to make myself feel better because if these people got what they wanted, I would be murdered in 10 seconds.
But I think you're talking so goals oriented. Like it's not even about a specific outcome. Yes, Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. If you're narrowing their goals to just that, they will fail, right? Yeah. But there are so many spider webs of implications about what has happened here that has undercut a democratic process that's already a sham. I understand that, but there are still crumbs and things that remain about the United States way of being. And they have undercut it. Bush v. Gore undercut it. It snowballed. Trump undercut it by saying millions of illegal immigrants voted in the 2016 election. And then it's culminated in this. And the next time around, this will be built upon. So like the goal that you're talking about, I agree. They're not organized enough to legitimately orchestrate a coup and Trump will not remain in office. But like why I said play clip 6 is as they were leaving the Capitol, they said there's going to be a next time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and this is why I was comparing this to the burning of the precinct. It's a symbol that people can organize around in the future. It's a foothold for
I don't want to romanticize this. I don't want to romanticize this.
I think you're really trying to say that this is like I don't think you're romanticizing it, but I do think that you're looking at this in sort of the same sort of way you'd look at a leftist movement, and it's just not the same.
What happened yesterday
is basically imagine if they had a leader yesterday and they were willing to do everything that they did, but there was actually someone smart enough to pull the strings and achieve their goal, just using these people basically to take the brunt of everything while he walked in or she walked in or they walked in and did what they wanted. And who knows, they could have just stolen shit that could have undermined the country. Who knows what they could have done. And they were, again, this wasn't organized enough to do anything, but these people are ready to do whatever based on just falsified information that they've been hit over the head over and over with online, by Fox News, by OAN, by Newsmax. Now imagine if they had someone guiding them smarter than Trump next time around. That's sort of the thing. And that's where I think there's people on the left who are sort of downplaying this just because it was so, looking back, there are some things yesterday, like there's a picture that Getty had of this guy literally foaming from the mouth in the foreground. He looks insane. He looks ridiculous. I was laughing at this.
You were the one that tweeted that, right? Because you were laughing at that.
And it's good to, have a laugh so you don't go insane every now and then. But like at the same time, like these people were totally ready to do what they set out to do. They just didn't know how to do it. They didn't reach that part of the thinking process before they went down there.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of what ifs, right? Like, what if a lot of things happen? What if these people got their shit together? But I feel like
when people were laughing at Trump in 2015, I'm sure they were thinking, what if he actually became president, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think like yesterday was totally predictable, but also a gut punch. And I think, it's important to recognize the signs along the way. And I'm not saying you're romanticizing them. I just mean like the idea of that kind of violation under the guise of revolution, I think is a scary concept. And that's what they use to justify it in themselves.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. No, I know.
I mean, just look at the imagery. I know. We're talking about like the left and the right. Look at the imagery though of just like the left uses the guillotine because that's connected to like throughout history of like taking care of the very rich and powerful who are holding down the people. And the right used yesterday, they brought it, the noose, which is automatically connected to what? No, it's connected, not the rich and powerful. It's connected to literally lynching black people who were slaves. I mean,
it
and then
serves
during
the
the
rich
civil
and
rights era
powerful.
too, not even just slavery. So it is, they're looking for two different things. And I think to say that,
we're on opposite sides of a war that has already begun. And
Right. But I think there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying you again, but I think I think you're just unfortunately being given the face of it but I don't think on this show right now, but I don't think it's you. But there are people on the left who I saw who are just like, oh, good. We should be doing this. I wish it was us doing this. And I mean, well, you wouldn't be doing it for the reasons they're doing it, and you would have been going about it differently. So it wouldn't have been as disgusting as, so.
Of course. And what they want is the opposite of what we want. I mean, maybe we'll get to the clip in a second, but like it sends a chill down my spine when I hear liberals on TV referring to these people as anarchists, because they are the opposite of everything that anarchists stand for. These people.
It's just a shorthand of them like getting around calling them terrorists.
Sure. Yeah. These people are bootlickers. I cannot emphasize that enough, right? Like anarchists and communists want to overthrow the current ruling order of things and implement a fairer and more democratic society, economically, politically, in all ways. These people want to preserve the status quo. They want to serve capitalism and, in fact, further enshrine it and further enshrine the hierarchy that exists in this country, the racial hierarchy, the economic hierarchy, the gender hierarchy. So there's no comparison between the two here. And it makes me angry and also scared, once again, that this is going to create an opening to crack down on anarchists, on communists, on Black Lives Matter in all sorts of horrible ways.
Right. So let's play clip 6.
Yeah, let's do that.
We've been in there. There ain't nothing going on in there. Not right. Yeah! We will not give up. Our country back, baby. Is anybody forcing you guys out? You're bringing back, but we're not hard. Let's go get a beer and then come back.
And let's go get a beer.
Yeah.
I would love a beer.
I like the guy who started out the clip when he comes out and goes, "There's nothing going on in there." I mean, because they really thought, that's the thing. It doesn't matter that they didn't do anything. They thought in their minds they were going to. So many of them, like they travel from all over the country, not to break a window. They could break a window at the building next door to there in the local town at home. They don't need to travel across the country to Washington, D.C. to break a window. They went there because they thought they were going to overturn the election. The problem is they got in there and didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like that's like, it doesn't matter what they actually did. It's what they planned on doing. It's why they went there. And, I think that's a main thing that just keeps being.
Well, I'll just say, like, I think the whole point of this sort of thing is intimidation. Like they did accomplish a lot. They had members of Congress barricaded themselves for hours. Like they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, I think, in terms of that. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it does remain to be seen if this is some sort of last gasp or if this is the new normal. But I am not confident that like this element is going to be rooted from the Republican Party. That side of it, I think it's going to be co-opted. I think it's already deep in there.
I mean, this problem is not going away for sure. I think the only thing that we're disagreeing about is, does this currently pose a threat to liberal democracy and to the state? And I don't think that it does. I don't think it poses any more of a threat currently than people on the left do.
I think it poses
I think for better or for worse, the state as it's currently constituted and our institutions of liberal democracy are tough enough to withstand an effort, an attempt, a sideshow like this one. I was scared for a second when I thought the National Guard wasn't coming, but then just kidding. Yes, they are. The army is not going to side with Donald Trump. The army is certainly not going to do a military coup to keep Joe Biden from being president. You know, maybe if it was Bernie Sanders, the math formula might be a bit different.
Well, exactly.
No.
I mean, that's the thing is like, this is all stage operations for when they want to do this, not necessarily to Congress, but some state government that a leftist gets in.
Well, we also
they're doing it in Pennsylvania.
Who's got the money and who's got the power in the Republican Party, right? It's the Koch brothers. It's giant capitalists, and they have soured on Trump for quite some time because he poses a threat to the stability of the world order. He poses a threat to economic stability. They want to get him out. You know, if the Koch brothers were on Trump's side, I might be analyzing this in a different way.
Right. And I just want to, Matt, I agree with what you said in terms of they put fear in people, and that was possibly one goal. But honestly, that is something I think that we think of because that's, when the left, when progressives, when, Black Lives Matter takes the streets and form take direct action. And they do tactics like that. That is the goal. Like, they're not going to say that's the goal, but they know that's the goal because they're longtime organizers, activists, and protesters. But maybe, there probably are a few smart people who are down there. I'm sure like some Proud Boy leaders
I'm not really
smart enough to know they were just causing trouble. But honestly, from what I've seen, for the most part, there was a large group of people down there who literally thought they were going to somehow
I have an argument
Trump.
with that. Like, but those people are just misled, right? Like they're out there. Like the people that are actually using them and there are going to be misled people all over the place, especially with our media environment. But what they're being used for, and what the Republican Party, and what like Roger Stone and all these people, what they're being used for is to intimidate. And like, I don't know. I've talked to people who are on Ilhan Omar's staff, and like it's like, yeah, we're pretty confident the FBI's got our back. It's like, when you have to start worrying about things like the Department of Defense and who's going to control the National Guard, like hopefully you got a good governor. Like it like this stuff it's been a learning experience for these Nazis is what I'm mainly afraid of.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Right. No,
I mean, they can
point.
come back in a more evolved form.
And it's possible, the Koch brothers will eventually find a reason to side with them, in which case I will be more concerned for liberal democracy. But right now, for better or for worse, and I think for better, right, because they want to take things in the opposite direction than I want to take them, the state and Capitol are united in standing against this kind of attack.
Right.
So...
do you want to get to that clip of?
Yeah.
I do want to take some calls, but I do want to get to that clip of
Cori
who
Bush.
was it? Was it Matt Gaetz or is it Mo Brooks? Whoever, they both were doing it, I know, but whoever we have a clip of who is spreading the misinformation.
You want to do both of those, and then we can get to calls and IMs. Does that work
let's
for you?
do that.
Or?
Yeah,
okay.
That sounds good.
So I'll start with Cori Bush, and then we'll do the clip you're talking about, if that's
all right. Cool, perfect.
All right, cool. So Cori Bush, newly inaugurated, I guess, or appointed. I don't even know how you refer to it, but she is a congresswoman now, an awesome progressive, part of the squad. She went really hard against the rioters and terrorists from yesterday. and went even further than a lot of other Democrats, calling for the removal of the Republicans who instigated this.
I guess my question to you is, what do you think happened today? Do you think that Capitol Police were simply overwhelmed? Or do you, because every member that we've spoken to feared for his or her life as early as yesterday, so they had to have known that today was possible.
Yeah, it's strange because, as someone who has been to hundreds of protests, starting back from the Ferguson uprising, it was strange because it was almost like there was this call to not use force. It's just, I'm not used to seeing this where there could be this many people and there is nothing that looks like it's in place. There are pictures and video of, police officers or whatever the law enforcement was walking away. I'm even hearing people talk about, that they just stood by. So I don't know what the command was, what the call was for, but there were actual people. Like, we are people, we are lawmakers, we were at work, and we have been told that when we're here on these grounds that we are safe. Some of us have security detail because of things that have happened to us, but we're told when we're here we are safe. But today was not that day. And had it been people who look like me, had it been the same amount of people, but had they been black and brown, we wouldn't have made it up those steps. We wouldn't have made it to be able to get into the door and bust windows and go put our feet up on desks of Congress members. We wouldn't have made it that far. We would have been shot. Yeah. We would have been tear gas. We would rubber bullets. That would have happened before we made it there. We need to call it what it is. It's white supremacy. It was white privilege, and it was the call of our president. And it was encouraged by our Republican colleagues. And that is why every single one of them, especially because they have been the ones trying to steal this election, that's why we are calling for them to be removed. They should not be seated.
Damn.
Sorry, I'm muted. I just love seeing her grow into her role as a congresswoman and the strength that she shows there. I'm just so... Obviously, she's a sellout and a shill, but I'm so excited for her to continue to bring the progressive fight there, because those were strong words, and just calling out the white supremacy and then just bringing it home with, it's not going to happen, but the fact that there is a progressive push to remove these Republicans, these treasonous Republicans, and I hate using the nationalist word of treason, but it does resonate with people. That she's calling for them to be removed. It's a great thing.
For sure.
Right. And of course, the goal is, that she brought up how differently Black Lives Matter protests would be treated, and she's absolutely right. But just, for people who might be happy to see, other people on the, receive police brutality. The goal is that there'd be no police brutality, not that everyone be brutalized by the police.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Maybe. No, I'm going to stop right there. I do think we need to no, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to talk about this later.
I think about it, and that woman who was shot and killed. We were talking about her earlier. It is really sad that she was brainwashed to this point that she died for Donald Trump. And, when you look at the video, she's going through a broken window and she's shot for that. And it does seem like an overreaction, and it is an overreaction. In my understanding of what I've seen. And at the same time, though, you don't feel, you sort of feel like, but they would have shot a black or brown person for doing something, 50 feet away from the Capitol, that wasn't even, they wouldn't even come to that level, let alone inside the Capitol. So,
and the politics play a role as well, right? Because I have seen plenty of white anti-fascists being brutalized by the police right in front of my face at some of the George Floyd protests and other ones. Right. It's both. It's always the race as well as the politics. But
yeah. I talked to Matthew Clare for Ring of Fire a few weeks ago about his macro view about how, a lot of leftists get really outraged when cops are not sufficiently penalized or even prosecuted for killing Black people, which is something that has been my default reaction for a long time. But his point was that it's a part of the overall corrupt penal system that focuses not on rehabilitation, but on severe punishment, and that the overall view needs to be, you know, from 300 feet in the air, that just pushing for the prosecution of these cops who are often in cahoots with the prosecutors or friends with them at the very least is just kind of retribution and empty, and that the bigger view is to talk about the criminal justice system overall. Similarly, obviously, we do not want police brutality towards anybody, including Trump supporters, insurrectionists, pushing into the state capitol. Like, I wish no one died yesterday. I wish no one was harmed yesterday. So that's the kind of principle that we have to be strong enough to adhere to as leftists, even when it's hard, even when it's people we don't agree with, even when it's people committing crimes that are very harmful.
Absolutely. We got to oppose state violence in all of its forms, no matter what. Right. Nobody should be getting brutalized by the cops.
Right.
Yeah, this
So
is
let's
what
get
Biden just said
go ahead.
in his speech. He said, no one can tell me that if it had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently from the mob of thugs that stormed the Capitol. We all know that's true, and it's unacceptable. But it's unclear, like, in what direction that's unacceptable.
He just hits the base point that he needs to, and then he's like, all right.
Yeah,
see you later.
I think we know how Biden feels about the continued funding of the police because he's told us, right?
Yeah.
So let's get to this Lou Dobbs clip,
Right. So,
and Mo Brooks too. You wanna get into that? You're especially passionate about it, Matt.
Oh boy,
yeah. This is a fun one. This is a fun one for me because it's right in my my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
All yesterday after this failed attempt at overturning the election for Donald Trump happened, where the Trump supporters broke into the Capitol. People who were not on the ground there, and a lot of these are the more professional class Republicans who saw these unwashed masses. Basically, they saw guys with shaggy hair and beards, and they must have assumed that they couldn't have possibly been upstanding Trump supporters. Trump supporters don't look like that. Automatically, you started seeing online the old trope from that we saw over the summer, especially this past summer, where they had to find the scapegoat, and that scapegoat is always now Antifa. You saw Rep. Matt Gaetz spread this rumor on the this misinformation, really, on the House floor yesterday. Louis Gohmert took to Twitter to spread these conspiracies. Dinesh D'Souza did that as well. A number of prominent conservatives did. And here is Representative Congressman Mo Brooks from Alabama on Lou Dobbs on Fox Business, spreading that rumor via visual video.
Of course, obvious videotape suggestion that Trump supporters themselves were involved, but it could be any number of other groups, anarchists or what have you, that could have taken advantage of this opportunity to try to vandalize the United States Capitol. So I urge everyone to not form a judgment until our investigative capabilities have been exercised in full, and I promise you we will know whether it was one or more of those groups in combination that conducted this violence on the United States Capitol grounds, and I don't care who they are. Yeah. They need to be fully prosecuted under the United States law to the fullest permitted by law.
Yes, and there have been reports that there were instigators. There is no evidence or proof, as you allude to those suspicions, and in some cases,
well, we did have Lou. We did have some advance
speculations.
Warning that there might be Antifa elements masquerading as Trump supporters in advance of the attack on the Capitol. So there is some evidence, but whether that's true or not, I can't say.
Yeah, it's evidence of intelligence that wasn't apparently well used by the authorities. But when I said we don't have evidence, we have nothing more than speculation at this point. Some conjuring about the prospect of the possibility, but I think your caution is a correct one nonetheless.
So that was even too conspiratorial for Lou Dobbs. Like he had to try to tamp that down.
Right, Lou. I was thinking the same thing.
It's because his audience is among the people storming the Capitol.
Lawsuits, yeah.
Right.
I mean, we talked about it this last night, right? The idea that Antifa, it's just like three Antifas on top of each other in a trench coat. If you actually try to catch and unmask one of these guys, in this case, considering the respective frames and densities, I would say it's like three Antifa guys wide standing next to each other in a trench coat.
Right. I mean, if you look at the videos from yesterday, it's a rare instance yesterday where there was a mass group of Trump supporters holding an event in public, and there were no counter protesters. There was no one even went up against them, because the overall talk online, even in leftist circles and anti-fascist circles, is basically, this is going to be a shit show on January 6th. Let them basically get themselves into the shit.
And what's the point of protesting? Like the election has been won. I mean, nobody thought. We always imagined something like this could happen, and it was, of course, in the realm of possibility, but no one actually thought they were going to break down the doors and could have potentially taken Ilhan Omar hostage or something like that. I mean, that was close to happening yesterday.
Well, they even turned against some prominent supporters of the president. Like I mentioned earlier, when Sam was on the show before he left on the first half of the show, you had people on the right turning against the QAnon shaman, the QAnon supporter in the Viking hat, who was one of the first people in the Capitol building, who was taking pictures behind the gavel on the Senate floor.
Yeah, they
in
were
the chambers.
Look at that fucking hipster. Who does he think he is?
That guy's on so much artificial testosterone. Like I just know that kind of guy, and men vitality pills. Ugh.
I mean, there's literally dozens of videos of this guy throughout the past year at least, where he's forcefully supporting Donald Trump and talking about stop the steal and winning back the re-election for Trump, and shouting about how Democrats and Hollywood liberals are all part of a global satanic pedophile ring at Trump while he's at Trump rallies. This guy is among the most hardcore of hardcore Trump supporters. Also, sort of funny now, if you think about it, that he is now being demonized via conspiracy theory, and he's now got to convince people that he really isn't a Antifa member, while he's been calling everyone else a pedophile. But,
he made himself very noticeable, and then it sounds like last night he was the one that was telling people to leave. They pegged him out as one of the leaders, and I'm sure they said, "Hey, you're going to help us clear this Capitol, or we're going to give you massive, massive charges." And that's what I imagine happened.
Right. And then there was this Washington Times article that Matt Gaetz brought up on the House floor yesterday, which basically claimed that they were given evidence by a former military official from a company called, XR Vision, a facial recognition company, where they did some work on the photos that came out using their special algorithm technology to basically find that at least two people who were in the Capitol storming it and breaking stuff were members of Antifa. And Washington Times ran with this story, and they didn't share that evidence. They said we were showed it, but didn't provide any photos or the proof that they were given by this military official from XR Vision. And then last night I was doing some digging, and the company, the XR Vision, is barely a real facial recognition company. Their CTO is actually himself a right-wing conspiracy theorist. He runs a blog completely obsessed with Hunter Biden, and he basically puts the XR Vision logo on all of his photos he creates online.
It's called branding.
Right, exactly. But then on top of that, aside from the fact that this company consists of right-wing conspiracy theorists to begin with, they put out a statement today. They gave it to BuzzFeed saying, "We didn't give Washington Times anything. We dispute their claim completely, and we're sending them a cease and desist, and we want an apology and a retraction." Whoa. So even the right-wing facial recognition company is saying that the idea that they're proving Antifa was there is unfounded, and Washington Times is just basically pulling it out of their ass. So that's where that whole Antifa thing came from. That Rep. Matt Gaetz and other congressmen, Republican congresspeople, are flaunting as proof that Antifa, not Trump supporters, were somehow responsible for yesterday.
Yeah. No, if anything good comes from this, I mean, I think it's that people view these psychopaths, most people view these psychopaths as being scarier than anti-fascist organizers at this point in time.
All right. So let's go to phones. Yeah, let's take, probably got time for 2 or 3 calls, depending how long they are. Let's go to the phones here. Where is this? Hold on, it's frozen.
I will BRB, guys.
Right. 818, what's your name? Where are you calling from? All right.
Hey guys, Dave from Jamaica. How are you guys? Well,
hey Dave,
how are you guys handling
what's up?
Great to hear from you. Actually, you usually have a great opinion and analysis on these sort of situations. So I'd love to hear what you have to say, Dave.
Well, I might come with a slight disagreement. While I understand the spectacle description, I think it focuses on the wrong thing. Maybe we're overthinking it, right? In the sense that I see this as purely a flex, like a power flex. This is more like when you saw the nooses and the crosses going up. This is basically people saying, hey, we can do this, and there's jack all you can do about it, right? So, because look at it, most of them were able to walk home after this was done, right? They weren't arrested or anything like that. So This is kind of a flex in that sense. And I think we might be underestimating, like, let's say if America became a more authoritarian state, would that really affect how capital operates? Not that much, right? So I think people are downplaying it. They could have, let's say, if the scenario happened where the timing was a little different, and as Matt said, they got hold of Elon, or they killed a few Democratic congressmen and whatnot. Do you think what would be the scenario then? It wouldn't be hard for me to imagine Republicans all of a sudden just playing ball with the mob. So I think people underestimate how can I say this? Yes, the right wing didn't have much of a plan, but when your general plan is to fuck over people that are not like you, you don't really need to be that much big in the details, right?
Right.
Well,
right. No,
okay.
Or am I?
When
No,
I
I
say
think- No, go ahead.
when I
Jimmy.
say it's spectacle, I feel like people are misunderstanding me a little bit to be using it in the colloquial sense, like it's just for show, it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything. No, it matters a lot, actually. And I'm going to read a definition right now off Wikipedia, because I'm using spectacle. Maybe I'm using it wrong, but it's part of a critical theory by Guy Debord. And I'm going to quote this definition now. Quote, the spectacle refers to the autocratic reign of the market economy, which had acceded to an irresponsible sovereignty and the totality of new techniques of government, which accompany this reign. Now, that's a little bit vague. I think in a more specific sense, it means the mass media, quote, which are its most glaring superficial manifestation. So I'm not saying that this is not a real problem, right? People could have been killed, just like with Pizzagate. You know, somebody showed up to a pizza place with guns because of stuff they read online. This is heavily mediated by the mass media, and it's a result of a society where politics have been completely subsumed by the media, by tabloid press, by consumerism, etc., etc. So the consequences could in fact be very bad, but the level on which it operates is in this particular sphere, and it's not connected to a mass movement with organizational power on the ground, even compared to Charlottesville, right? The groups that were represented at Charlottesville were real groups, real organizations, like probably the high watermark of the street movement, of the far right street movement. And since then, they've been struggling to regroup and reorganize. So while I do think it's concerning that an action of this level could arise somewhat spontaneously via online communication and online organization without real groups with organizational power, institutional power behind it, I'm not as concerned as I would be if there were signs of, like, you know, the Proud Boys coming back in a big way as a group and spawning lots and lots of other groups, you know?
Right. I see what you're saying. I think there definitely is. There definitely is. I think that there is positive. I think there is positives to what Jamie's saying, but at the same time, there is something more dangerous. Some aspects of it being so unorganized. If the Proud Boys were responsible fully for this, and those people are all Proud Boys, then you know that you defeat the Proud Boys in some way, shape, or form, and then this is all over. But here, when you have such an unorganized smattering of people, there is no way to end this. Like what we saw yesterday is probably the largest and most violent event spawned by a political conspiracy theory in I don't know, maybe in history. I don't know in terms of, I'm thinking of other events.
I mean,
where,
a lot of politics were driven by conspiracy theory in the past, so I think we might want to confine that to...
Right, but this one was pretty big. Like I'm trying to think of another, because that's where this all came from. This was just so pushed by these conspiracies.
Think about it, like if you think about it, like maybe I'm going too far back. Look at the Middle Ages and when they had the pilgrims, right, to massacre Jews in large numbers. That was basically spawned by conspiracy theories as well, right? So
right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think at least for the right. I think conspiracy is a big part of the mobilizing engine.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No,
you're
right there.
It was also backed by the ruling order, though, right? And in this case, I feel like only a fraction of the ruling order is united with this particular thing. Whereas
that's where I disagree. Like, I agree that with like shouldn't be too freaked out about this, but I think it is aligned with the ruling orders, particularly on the right. Like, I think they got above their skis, but like this isn't so foreign from like all the Republicans in either Congress or state legislatures that are supporting it. Like, I don't know.
The ruling party, the ruling order is fractured, right? And that's that causes problems as well, right? When
that's American history for you.
Yeah, when different elements of capital are divided against themselves, what do we get? We get a world war that kills millions of working class people.
Yeah, or a civil war.
Yeah, but I think I want to draw a comparison here to force the vote, right? Because that was also highly mediated by the media and the spectacle, and they did not actually manage to bring that many people out, whereas when they tried it on the right, they did. So that does concern me a little bit, that the same level of half-assed organizing via media could have such different results.
Right. No, I get what you're saying, and I just realized I meant to say modern
history. Also, I guess another concern of mine, though. I guess another concern of mine, if you guys can still hear me, is that
go ahead.
I hope more of the rad libs do not over focus and use this as a thing to kind of shit on poor white people. The last thing you want to do is push poor white people towards
poor white people aren't traveling across the country to
poor people don't have the free time to go to DC. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just saw, and I was just checking Twitter really quick. Jimmy Dore was arguing that they wouldn't, not to bring him up, but I just had to, just based on that comment. I heard the arguing that none of this would have happened if they had $2,000 checks.
Oh my God. I mean, I just went over this, right? They said themselves, they're small business owners.
I'll send it to you guys in the chat.
And they are not thinking about a time in which they will not be, because, everyone in America is a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, right? They're siding with the ruling class, and it makes sense for them to do that, right? Because we are in a time of intense economic crisis, and these small business owners are afraid that they will not become millionaires, and in fact, they will become exploited workers, just like everybody else. So
it's so lazy. It's such a lazy, you don't have to do any research or understand politics. It's, I'll just kind of quarter-ass class reductionism and call it a day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that there are
no, I'm not talking about you. Obviously, Jimmy.
I'm not saying there are no working class people involved either. But they are junior partners at best in this kind of cross-class coalition that ultimately does not serve the interests of the working class in more ways than one, right? I'm talking about the economics of it. Small business owners are always going to be against a $15 minimum wage, for instance. They've decided that immigration poses a threat to their bottom line, which is actually not true, but they believe it is. And certainly economic nationalism is an effort to like shore up the profits for them in the business sector. But yeah, it's not a working class movement.
I mean, there are people certainly who voted for Trump and
think about.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that is true. I'm not saying yes. Some poor people are assholes. It's possible, but people need to realize and think about it. Like, poor people can't afford to go to DC to cosplay. Poor people can't afford 10,000 guns, right? It's just
and bulletproof vests.
The trick is not to kind of right. The trick is not to fall for the reactionary trap and push those poor people into that. Push them into that thing and say, "Oh, you're all on the same team." That's the thing that a lot of radlibs need to kind of wrap their head around.
Yeah.
Which
absolutely.
I find I'm working with my best I can. It might, and that's the part that kind of annoys me. Mm-hmm. And also, I think, and this is the part where certain people might get pissed off. I'm less concerned about punishing the folks that stormed the Capitol than punishing the leadership.
Oh, no, you're not going to lose anybody. You're not going to lose anybody there. I mean, anyone on the show.
What do you say?
Trade, if we could lock up most of the Republican leadership and let those guys who stormed the Capitol off, I'd take that trade.
He said that he's more interested in going after the Republicans who enabled this than the people that stormed the Capitol.
Because again, these guys are bootlickers, and if they don't have a daddy, telling them what to do, I don't think that they're going to be able to organize themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need to always orient it away from, even psychoanalyzing the people that stormed the thing, because I don't, or even profiling them, because I don't think it's that interesting.
I agree.
The apparatus that's encouraging them, the media and political apparatus.
Well, it's just visceral for people, right? Like, it just allows them to feel better about themselves. That's so much of what it is. But breaking news sent to us by Brendan, NBC reporting Pelosi has told Pence that he has to invoke the 25th Amendment or the House will take up impeachment.
Well,
so, I mean,
I guess
good.
I guess the feeling on impeachment too is kind of, I feel like while I understand it, a part of me wants to go with something more guaranteed. I don't understand the system as well, but let's say if Trump leaves office, right? And he's charged with a crime, would that, and
that's not easy.
That also invalidate him from.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I don't think that's easier than impeachment. Like, people, I don't think Trump is getting arrested. Like, I think impeachment is actually one thing that can be done. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I mean, I think it, because I think like they already impeached him over some other stuff. Like, they can impeach him again over something significantly worse that had them hiding behind like their desks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not mad that they're calling for impeachment, but I don't think that anything is ultimately going to come of it.
No, it's not going to solve anything, but it's their responsibility, and they should be rewarded or applauded for doing so.
Like, people already know that Trump is bad, and it's bad that he did that, and just censuring him via a failed effort at impeachment, I don't know if that's really going to change the balance of power in any way.
Right.
I guess I'm more in support of anything that has the most likely chance of preventing him from getting power again. I guess that's my calculus for it. And if impeachment is the best chance, go for it. If it's something else, go for it.
I don't think you're going to be able to do anything final like that. I think that they go for. I think impeachment is something that they can do, just because I think they should do it, even if they can't. Like, fine, but like it's a message that should be sent about what he's been doing. But like, I don't think that he's not going to be arrested. He's not going to be banned from running again. If anything stops him from running again, it's himself.
All right, let's get to some other calls.
Let's
Sorry.
jump to let's jump to what we probably
Sorry,
covered
Dave.
more fast. We're gonna jump.
We
Okay?
just Dave always comes with such interesting topics. We want to stay on the line
Absolutely.
forever.
Exactly.
Right. This is an odd day for us where there was so much to talk about that we didn't even have time for calls pretty much. Let's go to 570. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Dave from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Damn,
Hey,
two
Dave.
Daves.
Hello?
Hey, Dave from
hey,
Scranton.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah. Hello, thanks. First of all, Happy New Year to Sam and the MR crew. You guys do a great job every year. Couple quick points. First of all, I think it's hypocritical for someone to say that they're against censorship and free speech, where they're against censorship and for free speech, even though they shadow ban YouTube comments and block people on Twitter. I think it's also hypocritical for someone to say they won't talk to somebody with a corporate contract, say MSNBC, even though they talk to people who work for Rolling Stone, which is owned by the Penske Corporation, go on RTTV, talk to Tucker Carlson, and so on. But, back in the summer, I called into the Majority Report, and I told Sam that I wish he went out after some of the dum-dums on the left as much as he went after Dave Rubin, because I saw how toxic some were getting and how and we see that now and how bad it is. But I know there's more important stories. I was agreeing with Tom Hartman before what happened with the Georgia call and what happened obviously yesterday, that it didn't make sense for Biden to go after Trump and the federal government. I know you guys disagree, but since the New York case, was going to go after Trump, that if Biden not going after him, it would have his supporters, it wouldn't be as high profile. Trump supporters would pretty much ignore what's going on. Okay, it's not as sexy as what could happen in the federal government, but he would still be prosecuted for the crimes that he commit. He wouldn't get, his sycophant supporters, sending him money if it was just in New York and not the federal government. I still thought that the, federal government should go after people like Ted Cruz and the 127 people in Congress, others in Congress going after, like people that supported Trump and this coup and everything else. But I just have one quick question. Shortly after the election, I heard people talking about nonsense, everything that they hear on Rush and other right-wing hate radio shows and everything they hear on Fox. I just want to know, how often in public do you get into conversations about politics with people? I mean, I know it's your job, and I know you probably want to not talk about it.
Wait, I'm sorry. So in public,
I
don't see anybody these days. So there's no conversations to be had. But
right, I was in a hospital office and doctor's office, shortly after the election. And I heard people saying Biden's going to destroy this country. Milk is going to be $20 a gallon, things like that. Just the right-wing rhetoric that I hear, from people on those type of shows all the time. And I was just wondering, how often would you get into conversations, out on the street? I mean, do you want to be confrontational, or is it not worth doing?
This is a difficult conversation to have when there's a coronavirus pandemic where it's completely precluding you from talking to strangers. So, in general, in New York, I probably did a lot. I probably heard a lot more of what you're talking about when I lived in North Dakota. But I don't. What else? Somebody else can.
I get into conversations with people all the time, and that is basically what canvassing is, right? You go up to people and you say, "Hey, do you want to talk about defunding the NYPD or whatever?" And they're like, "Yeah." And you have, a little one-on-one conversation. You get what their concerns are. You get some feedback. You have a talk. But I think even more important than that is building the kinds of organizations and institutions that we really need to build power in this country, because it's not just about convincing people. It's not just a model of individual persuasion and deliberation, right? I think that is missing a huge part of the picture. Like the working class as a political actor needs to be built. It's not just there waiting to be awoken if you say the right arguments to people.
Well, Jamie, I have some polls about Medicare for All that might convince you otherwise.
Oh my God.
All right. Thank you so much.
I agree with. Yeah, thank you for taking my call. And again, Happy New Year.
Take care.
All right. Thank
you. Do you think there's way too many IMs, so I'm going to do the fair thing and not get to any of them because we don't have enough time. But do you guys think we have time for one more really quick call, or what do you think?
If it's really quick, yeah.
All right.
Gotta be
let's
quick.
Go to the phone. 386. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is B from Queens.
Hey,
oh, hi, B from Queens. That's a beautiful borough you live in.
It is way better than Brooklyn. Oh,
yeah, I agree. I
sorry,
agree.
Cameron.
Oh no.
I'll try to be succinct.
All right,
I'll try to be succinct.
Go ahead.
Right.
I've basically been trying to call in all week just to parrot Ben Dixon, and I think you guys really need to have him on because everything that I saw yesterday was white supremacy. That's the core issue here.
Yeah.
And the big
Ben
issue
Dixon
we're running
come on the
into
show
is
every
force
Friday
the
or
vote
every other
bullshit.
Friday?
Ben might be on tomorrow.
I don't know, but he should. Good, because he needs to talk about what I've been watching on Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap with him, and Marcus Farrell and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on names right now. But anyway, they had Dr. Cornel West on today, and on the night of the Georgia election, they had the head of the Democratic Party from DeKalb County, who happens to be a black man, on their program, while like CNN and everybody has these like random white DNC consultants who are talking about how black DeKalb County is and how it's going to come Democratic. And we consistently rely on black people to save us, and then we discard them. And the Georgia voters who just got us the Senate need more than a peach sticker. They've turned out in numbers that they hadn't since. Like there are black men that Mondale Robinson, through the Black Male Voter Project, was able to, over like 100,000. He was able to get them to vote in this election when they've been registered but not voting since 2008. There are real material things on the line here, and calling anyone who's black not progressive because they don't agree with you on force to vote, that's bullshit. And there are people on our side who haven't dealt with their white supremacy, who are much more comfortable with saying we need something like that on the left, or
their
we need a way to
sexism on that
combine
same
with them.
side.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's the same people.
And to say Jimmy Dore specifically, there's no way to be an abusive asshole for good.
No.
There's no way to do that. You can be direct and you can be aggressive, but you can't be an abusive asshole for good.
Just wait, you guys. Jim is going to abuse his way to all of us having medical care.
I mean, I hope I haven't come off as a class.
And the point that Ben Dixon makes a lot. The point that Ben Dixon makes a lot is even with Medicare for all, that just means that black people get to die in the hospital for free. There was a black female doctor who filmed herself dying in the hospital because the white staff around her wouldn't listen to her.
Right. That happens actually. You know,
she had medical
because
care.
She videoed it, but it actually happens a lot where doctors and nurses don't actually believe black people when they come in and say they have an ailment. They send them home not believing that there's an issue.
And that's why Medicare for all is not an end-all solution. We can't apply general solutions to specific problems. We need to center progressivism around black liberation. While one of us is in chains, none of us is free. We need to focus on the least of us, not focusing on white, middle-class, working-class people, this mythical voting bloc that everyone's chasing after. We need to
I agree.
deliver for the people who deliver for us every election.
Yeah, and beyond elections, I think black liberation is the skeleton key to
on the street
capitalism itself, certainly in this country, right? Because they are so intertwined. I mean, this U.S. capitalism was founded on slavery, right? It invented race. in a way that we hadn't seen before and used race to invent itself. So I think that is incredibly important and incredibly true. Not to say that Medicare for all is bad, right? We need Medicare for all. And we need to take
but
down...
it doesn't solve all the problems.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is a prerequisite. Like, I'm going to quote Boots Riley when somebody asked him, can we solve racism by taking down capitalism? And he said, no, we'll still have a lot of work to do, but it is a prerequisite to doing that work because capitalism is so inherently linked with white supremacy, especially in this country. And I hope I haven't come off like a class reductionist when I point to the economic crisis factors driving this, because they are so intertwined, right? When I talk about this as a class movement on the part of the petty bourgeoisie, these people want immigrants, they want people of color in a subordinate position so that they can work for them for less money, right? And they want the members of the white working class to side with the members of the white bourgeoisie and ruling class to keep them from uniting with their black brothers and sisters to overthrow the bosses in an unjust system.
B, you're the queen bee.
Yeah,
we're
not
going to
fix
that, right?
white supremacy without black people.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Queen bee from Queens.
Queen bee from Queens.
But we gotta let black people lead. This past 2020, my job as a white ally was to listen. I listened, and now I'm regurgitating what they've said, and we need to follow their lead.
Let's go. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. It's like the perfect way to wrap.
Absolutely. And Jamie, just by the way, I just want to let you know that when I think of the words class reductionist, you automatically always come to mind. That's just the most obvious.
Oh dear.
Also neo-lib sellout. That's when I think of Jamie too.
Right.
Right.
I am many things
I
to many
think
people.
technocrat, but okay.
Right. Technocrat too. Sorry.
Right.
And a snake.
Right.
My middle name is Elizabeth.
There you go. All right, lady, as in Warren, right? Yeah. Just making sure I got. I was actually thinking for a second, why is she bringing up? Oh, right, someone else just said, got it. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that's the show for today. Tune into the Nomiki show. That was a mouthful for a second.
You were like Sam for a second.
Right, and that'll be going on right on YouTube at a couple of minutes at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, I will see you next week. You'll see each other tomorrow, and youtube.com/Matt Binder for my show, and see you all next week, everybody.
Yeah, see you all.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.